think we are live. Okay, just do a couple quick editings here, and then we're going to kind of get going. All right, bear with me. All right, hang tight. Just got to do a few editing. Here we get going. Hold on. All right. Okay, hold on. Hang tight. I'm going to edit this real quick. All right. All right, let's give everybody a minute or two, get some time for some people to show up, then we'll go ahead and get started. All right. Today's date, almost there. All right. I think we are good. All right. So, give time for some people. I see people filing in. So as you know, kind of just do this spontaneously. I'm going to see if we can get a few guests up in here. I'm going to reach out to a couple people. Let me run through some quick announcements before we begin. Just keep people updated on, actually, let me get live on Instagram real quick. Get that going. All right, hold on. Okay, we are live there too. All right, so let me run through some quick announcements. One second. All right, so to get everybody caught up, as we are, believe it or not, end of June approaching, we have 3 more events for June. For those on Patreon, you're already linked into these events. For those that are not on Patreon, you can sign up for 2 of those classes, not the ritual. You have to be a member on Patreon for the ritual, but let me just give you the correct dates and times. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button to the channel, hit the drop down bell, the notification. Check all notifications so you do get a notification when a video is uploaded or when there's a live video that we're doing at the moment. Let me pull up those dates and times just so I have them correct. All right, so we have this weekend two events, just so, again, if you're on Patreon, you're already covered. On Friday, June 24th, which is this upcoming Friday, 2 days from now, at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for Tier 3 members and above on Patreon. It is the Baphomet Rite of Samael and Lilith. You have to be a Patreon member to participate with us as a group. So check out again, which I'll throw that out a few times. It's in the description box here, the videos. Patreon.com/Baniti, Baniti. That's patreon.com/Baniti, Baniti. And then the next day on Saturday afternoon, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we'll have African Witchcraft and Sorcery class number 7. Okay. And that'll take place on Saturday, June 25th. If you are on Tier 3 Patreon, which, as I've said multiple times, is the way to go, because the Tier 3 $25 a month Patreon membership gives you access to the classes every month and the one ritual that we do as a group on Patreon. And then obviously you have access to all the archive, the recordings, and the classes from day one. So I highly recommend that. If you are not interested in signing up on Patreon, you can sign up individually per class, which costs a little bit more. And all that information is on, also check out the Primordial Chaos Facebook page, where that keeps all the announcements for classes, events, rituals. Also on the Primordial Chaos 9 on Instagram. You can also stay abreast there. That shows you, and even here in the YouTube, in the community section here in the YouTube page, the information to sign up and pay by either PayPal or Cash App. You can do that if you just want to take an individual class and you're not interested in doing the monthly Patreon, which is much better value personally. You'll see it when you go to it. Again, patreon.com/Baniti, Baniti. That will finish out the month of June. Sometime this week, going into the weekend, over the next few days, I will have the classes and the events for July posted. And as we keep obviously navigating and we get closer to August, September, October, it brings me to our next major event that we do once a year, which, believe it or not, is creeping up on us pretty quick. That is the Journey of the Black Adept Conference number 5. This will be the 5th consecutive year. I believe 5, right? I always get that confused. 19, 20, 21, 22. Yeah, it should be the 5th one. Always get that confused. And that will be from October 27th to October 30th. On a calendar year, as I said, it's always the last weekend in the month of October. So obviously the dates will slightly change, but it's always in the last weekend of October. So you can plan. We keep it that every year. So again, you're able to plan for those events, because we know it's a little bit costly and time consuming to booking flights and hotels and things of that nature. But again, we have the venue officially locked up again. We'll be doing it at the same venue we did last year for those who attended last year. It will be at Cultural Expressions in Hollywood, Florida, which is right in the heart of downtown Hollywood, Florida, which is just about a 10-minute, not even ride from the Fort Lauderdale Hollywood International Airport. That's the airport you want to fly into. It is right downtown, as I said. It is right near the beaches, shops, restaurants. It's an ideal location. You're close to everything. You don't even really need a car. If you do your work and scout the area, you'll see. We can also assist you if you need any information on Airbnbs, areas, locations, hotels. you could shoot us an email. As we get closer now, as I said, I will start in July. And the next month going into August, people can officially start registering and paying for the conference, as we now have, again, locked down the venue. So that'll be happening, 4-day event. The 27th, which is a Thursday, will be a meet and greet. That's kind of where everybody introduces each other, meets each other. Then the format for Friday and Saturday is pretty much the same. We have classes and presentations and workshops from 9 to 4 on Friday and Saturday. Then we return in the evening on both nights with a group ritual. Obviously, group dinners on both nights. And then we finish the event out on Sunday from about noon to 4 p.m. Now, as far as the last few years, we do offer the classes to the event. You can sign up. We add virtual. Now, virtual, the classes, yes. The rituals, no, because it's too much going on. And one of the rituals is outdoor. So it gives you access to both days, 3 days. It'll give you access to the classes and workshops on Friday, the classes and workshops on Saturday, and then the question and answer discussion class, which is Sunday. So virtually you can attend, and it'll give you access to all 3 days. It just won't give you access to the rituals in the evening because it's such a large thing. It's just too much. And again, one of those rituals is outdoors on the second night. We do it outdoors. We do one indoor working and one outdoor working. So yeah, you will have access, just like the last 2 years, to sign up virtually, again, for the classes. Yes. And I think last year we had about maybe 10, 15 people. We had a little group that signed up. So yes, that information will be out there. You can attend virtually also. All right. If you need any information, again, email address is in the description box of the video, khnum19@gmail.com. Also, if you are interested in a spiritual reading, I offer a variety of different ones, such as telepathic demonic readings. I offer Santa Muerte and Spirit of the Dead readings, Egyptian oracle readings, shadow work readings, which I always highly recommend when somebody says, where do I begin on this path? How do I start my ritual work? What direction should I be going in, et cetera, et cetera. Well, shadow work reading is a great place to start to see what's going on inside of here, right? To see what things come to the surface about yourself that you need to address, right? So that's always the best place to start. So that's highly recommended. Excuse me. For a full list of readings and type of services I offer, such as spiritual consultations, which that can be used for whatever you want. Any discussion, anything you feel you want to focus on, etc., shoot me an email and I will send you over a full price list. If you really are interested in going right into booking one, to save time, including your email, it saves the back and forth, the time zone that you are in and the days and times you're available. It just speeds up the process. Because again, as I said, I deal with people in the United States on all 3 time zones. I deal with people in various countries. I deal with people in Netherlands, Belgium, London. I got clients from Israel now, believe it or not, parts of Africa, you name it. So the time zone thing is very critical for me to know as far as scheduling. And I stay pretty busy with that throughout the week. Put it this way, today, the only reason why I'm on right now is because this is probably the first day in 2 weeks I didn't have anything scheduled on a Wednesday afternoon, believe it or not. But send that information, speeds up the process. And that pretty much covers most of the announcements I wanted to run through. Again, check out the Patreon page, patreon.com/Baniti, BANITI. I recommend tier 3. Gives you access to all the monthly classes and the once a month ritual that we do on Patreon as a group. All right. Other than that, you see the topic. As I said, I was going to start expanding, some of the topics that we discussed, get into some other areas of interest in addition, right? So I want to talk about kind of metaphysical in nature. There's a section in Dr. Edward Bruce Bynum's book about the superconscious. So I'm going to go through some key points in there real quick. I'll obviously build on those points, right, and have a discussion. And how this is critical in the understanding of how we need to be in sound mind and sound body. I can't stress that enough. I think it's something people don't, in my opinion, take more serious than they should, because if you have issues and you're not in sound mind, sound body, that can create a lot of issues, for you later down the road, right? Now, this is why it's very, critical that when you're working certain paths, right, or you're working with certain people, right, they also should be in sound mind, sound body. Now, look, nobody's perfect. I get that. We all got issues. We all got shit we're dealing with. But I'm talking about somebody who is a little bit obviously out there, right? So we're going to talk about this thing called Ascent, how it unfolds and how it connects to the superconscious, because there's an understanding here too to your spiritual growth and your spiritual reality. So I want to go into a section here. This is a book I highly recommend that I've talked about multiple times over the years. I've even had Dr. Bynum on, and I plan on having him on again soon. This is Dark Light Consciousness, Melanin Serpent Power, and the Luminous Matrix of Reality, right? This is a really good book because this book will help you understand the importance of neuromelanin and neuromelanin, right? It talks about how all of this is critical in the formation of understanding how consciousness evolves. And it's a word I know that's used very loosely. Everybody throws it out there. I'm woke, I'm conscious, I'm this and that. What does that really mean? Right? Well, first we have to, in order to be woke and conscious, as a lot of people say nowadays, bad information needs to be eliminated. And I've been saying this for years, right? I've been stressing this real hard for the last 3 years, right? We must shed old paradigms, old religious methodologies. The problem is a lot of people are bullshitting with themselves because they're staying stuck like Chuck in a lot of their old ways. And not just on a conscious level, but an unconscious level. That needs to be addressed, right? That ascent, right, or that growth that we're looking for, that being able to take our spirituality to the next level cannot happen or manifest if we're still stuck in old paradigms, right? If we're still stuck in old, philosophies and dogmas that are holding us back, right? It's a damn shame in 2022, you have people all over the internet still arguing fables and mythology, biblical stories about characters that you can't even prove exist, characters that there's no records to indicate that there was even a trace of the story that they're claiming in these religious texts. And as I mentioned, one of them last week, the Israelites or the Exodus or the children of Israel, for an example. There's no archaeological records to validate that anywhere in ancient Egypt, right? And I've said for years, show me a document that mentions them by that name, the Israelites, and a character called Moses in Hebrew, Moshe by name. It is not there. And as I've said for many years, these are mythological stories that were passed down and get grafted into other cultures. They get magnetized, like for an example, this story did, and there's no validation to prove it. There's no records to substantiate at all that there were any people on record for 430 years in ancient Egypt called the Israelites. And as I've said numerous times over the last several years, right? When you look at this, you would believe there would be something there if some people by that name were there for 430 years, because the Egyptians were meticulous in keeping records. So it's these stupid stories that we need, these mythological stories that people take literally, right? We need to figure out why some people are still stuck in religion, why some people are still stuck in traditional systems that they can't release themselves from. This is important because this is what holds people's growth back, okay? Because we still want to stay in these old paradigms, and it just doesn't work. It just doesn't work. All right. Hold on. Let's see if I could get Raven or Kevin to join me. Hold on 1 second. Let me share this link real quick. Hold on 1 second. All right. All right. All right. Here we go. All right. So let's go into this. In the ascent of consciousness from its bed in unconscious matter, there appears to be level of unfoldment that, psychologically speaking, arise as the ego is successfully stabilized and made quiet. Let's stop there for 1 second. There's a lot of people's methodologies on what the ego is, and let's address the ego first, right? Because to me, there's a lot of bullshit out there about the ego, right? A lot of these right-hand path philosophies or paths of enlightenment are always pushing this concept of you must destroy the ego completely. That is complete bullshit, okay? We need to understand, and the term that's used here is stabilize the ego. That's the key word, to stabilize the ego, not destroy it completely. Now, let's talk first of the aspects of the ego, which is important to understand. Are there destructive aspects, personal self-destructive aspects of your ego? Yes, let's talk about that first, right? Sometimes ignorance, which is probably the worst aspect of an individual's ego, meaning a person who has is slapped upside the head with facts and reality and just wants to continue to stay in denial. A person who may know they're wrong, but will continue to resist and fight it. These are the destructive aspects of the ego. Somebody who thinks they're the biggest and the baddest walking the face of the earth, right? People that write checks, their mouth writes checks that their ass can't cash, right? Sometimes people get a slice of humble pie, right? These can be damaging aspects of the ego when you feel like you're just completely being arrogant, ignorant, foolish, in denial, etc., right? No control or self-discipline in certain areas of your life, etc. But there's aspects of your ego that you need not destroyed, right? Because your ego protects you, right? We've talked about this many times over the years. Your ego is what keeps you sometimes clear from danger. It keeps you, it keeps you out of the box and the spectrum of falling into some of these religious ideologies, right? Faith and belief systems. It gives you the ability to decipher in and speak up when you feel something is wrong, right? But knowing the way to go about doing that. Some people are just blatantly arrogant. We're not talking about thinking you're right as opposed to being able to reason out why you think you're right based on having something to substantiate your claims. So destroying the ego completely is an illusion, right? That is not how one goes about this path to master themselves. Stabilizing it, yes. How do you stabilize the ego? Real simple, by understanding the aspects we just talked about and how to carry those aspects out when need be. What do you think protects you if you had to defend yourself or your family? That's your ego, right? That's not a part of your ego you want to destroy. And then there's something that can get intertwined and mistaken for being what some people call egotistical, right? We hear this word all the time. Oh, that person is very egotistical, right? Now, sometimes confidence can be misconstrued for arrogance and ego, right? Because sometimes a person who is very confident in themselves, a person can perceive that as that person's very arrogant and egotistical. But in essence, usually they are projecting what that person wishes they were, right? That's usually why a person feels like that most of the time in regards to another, because that person might wish that they were just as confident, right? That person wishes that they were like that person, that whatever this arise of emotion of animosity, and as we say, hating on somebody arises, it's usually because you wish you were that person, right? So we need to recognize these things. So any path that teaches you it's about destroying the ego completely, that's not true, okay? That comes from the lesser paths of enlightenment. Those that are we're not trying to obtain enlightenment, we are enlightenment. That's the difference. What is enlightenment? It's intellect, it's knowledge. Everything is encoded in your DNA, it's already there. There's nothing that anybody is telling you, including myself, that you don't know already. It's just sometimes you get a DNA explosion when you hear something and you think it's new. It's not that it's new, it's just that you're remembering again and reawakening. So you might get those chills or those goosebumps, or the hair stands up on the back of your neck, or you get that aha moment where it clicks and it all comes together. That's what we call a DNA explosion, because it's encoded there. Nobody's telling you anything that you don't know. You might think it's new, but what it is you're waking up to the realization of what you already knew, okay? That's what you got to understand. So this is why I'd never come, like, as you see, if you've been watching my videos for years, I use any books or sources. I put it up on the screen, every video for years, right? I tell you, look at this book, refer to this book, refer to this page. If you're taking my Patreon classes, you get all the resources, right? That's because I want you to do your research yourself, and also you come to your understanding. Because again, as I've said over and over, not everybody is going to perceive things the same way. It's impossible to think that everybody's going to have the same perspective when it comes to intellect and knowledge and information. You have to come to your own understanding of that knowledge by exercising your wisdom, right? So this is what needs to be done for you to start that path of ascent and the unfoldment of the superconscious, which we're going to get into a little bit more here, right? So this is very critical. So stabilizing the ego, a very powerful statement. That's what it's about, not destroying it altogether, okay? Because I would challenge anybody on that, all right? When anybody, just if you speak against it, look, you might be listening to this video, or somebody listens to the recording and goes, well, I don't agree with that. What do you think that is right there? By you saying it, that's part of your ego, right? You're sitting there. If I made a statement like I just made right now, it's not about destroying all your ego. It's about stabilizing and understanding the self-destructive and the positive aspects of your ego. What do you think it is when you go, oh, no, I don't agree with that? It's about destroying and suppressing your ego altogether. You just used your ego to say that you don't need to eliminate your ego. You see, that's the shit that I'm trying to get at. What do you think that is? When you're in disagreement with somebody, whether that disagreement is validated, and it could be validated, or it could just be, you could be just disagreeing out of plain ignorance. There's that duality to everything. So there could be a duality to that. If you are just disagreeing out of straight ignorance because you refuse to accept the truth, then that's a damaging aspect of the ego. But if you are disagreeing because you have a validated point that is in opposition to that, that's a positive aspect of your ego, because you are standing up and speaking out against something. It's the same thing if somebody is spewing some religious mythological garbage and you know it's lies, right? And you speak out with another opinion, or you give some information that somebody can go look at to counteract that faith and that dogma, what's being said. That's a good aspect of your ego. So that's why I said I would challenge anybody on that. It's not about destroying it all. It's about stabilizing it, right? And once it's stabilized and made quiet and transparent enough to be both a support and a transitional object to the transcendental self. See this? So once it's transparent, where you don't need to, because some people are so petty and egotistical that they got to put on a show, right? Because they clout chase, right? They need props. They want everybody. Here's a damaging aspect of your ego. When you are trying to project a false persona about yourself, right? That's a damaging aspect of your ego, right? There's a lot of cats walking around that want everybody to think they're gangsters, right? Because that's the big thing today. Everybody's a gangster, right? You know, everybody walking around with, you know, their homo thug tight jeans on, and, you know, tighter than my little sister's jeans, and hanging off their ass, and they're hardcore thugs. And there's the psychological disconnect there, right? So we know factually everybody can't be a gangster and a thug, right? Some of these people are as harmless as a small child, but they have this false illusionary aspect of their ego that they need to project, that everybody needs to see them as some hardcore thug and gangster. And that's just not the truth. Some people got to project themselves as know-it-alls. They know everything. You can't tell them anything. Oh, I know that. Oh, I've been there, done that. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know. But yet you look at them and the example, their character, how they lead their life, and it doesn't reflect anything they claim they know. Damaging aspects of your ego. The list can go on and on and on, right? So part of that is making that process, as it says here, transparent. Now, that's a hard thing for some people to do on both sides of the coin, right? That's a tough thing to do, because there's certain things that incite ego in a person, right? Now you have to connect it to the emotions, right? Because then you have individuals who have no control over their emotions. What emotions? Anger, lust, jealousy, you name it. Any of those emotions. And it's not about, there's another false concept that exists now. It's not about suppressing and destroying all of your emotions. It's about channeling them effectively, right? That's another illusion, okay? All right, so we left off with transparency of the ego, right? So now, once that is accomplished, it can be a support. It can be a tool, right, for an individual, right, to transcend oneself, right? To, as you were saying, and we use this as a term where the consciousness shifts to higher states of understanding, right? I know sometimes you hear the word ascent, we're automatically programmed to think of this concept of elevating up, right? And why that comes is, whether you're conscious of it or not, religion did that to you with the heaven concept. I don't give a fuck. You could be so conscious and woke for years. People hear ascent and they start thinking of the clouds and the skies and all that shit. Okay? That comes from programming. And I'm not talking about just religious people. I'm talking about people who claim to be conscious and on some type of cultural awakening. That's not what an ascent means, right? It doesn't mean up there or somewhere out there, right? We're talking about shifting or evolving from one state of existence to another, right? It's not just an ascent where it goes from bottom to top, right? That's not just what an ascent means. An ascent can be a shift, right? Because as I've said many times before, what we're calling the spiritual planes, right? This can get programmed into us subconsciously, because you see all these charts, and in books, you see the diagrams of the chakras, right? You see the person, sitting in the meditating position, starting from the root to the crown. You'll see diagrams of the different spheres, spiritual spheres laid on top of each other, right? This all creates that visual. That's not what an ascent is. As I said many times before, the spiritual planes are interwoven around you, right? There's a thin veil literally in front of that deceives these two physical eyes, right? Because when this pineal here, the third eye that everybody claims is activated, is full of light, which is intellect, knowledge, not artificial illuminary light. It's talking about when the pineal is activated by real knowledge, real intellect, and real consciousness, the veil that is there that deceives the two physical eyes is lifted, and the decalcification process starts to begin, where an individual now can perceive spiritual reality. What was once maybe mythological or a fairy tale now becomes a reality, right? So it's almost like I said, it's almost a thin veil that you can penetrate once you have an understanding. It's not up there, it's not down there, it's not somewhere out there. It's interwoven around you. Any spiritualist knows this. So we're not looking to go somewhere out there, right? We're not looking to go to some fictitious place. And then, people go, well, astral travel. Well, where is the astral realm? Is it out there? When one obtains astral travels and enters one, not again, some people are very confused because they think there's just a astral realm. That's not true. There are many spiritual astral realms, right? If you understand your subjective universe / subjective consciousness in relation to your subjective, your objective consciousness, then you'll understand how the gateway and the gap is bridged, right? So there's not one astral realm. So my question is, when one when one enters the entrance or the gateway to the astral realm, where is the astral realm? Is it up there? Is it out there somewhere? How is that explained? Because when you vibrate at such a high frequency and make yourself vibrate out of person, place, and thing, three-dimensional, and you have an out-of-body experience or you astral travel, are you ascending? Question I'm asking is, are you actually ascending? Because some say, I take flight. I took flight out of my body, right? So we automatically interpret taking flight is to mean you are elevating up, or is it creating the illusion of that? Because there's nothing really up or down, right? You say, what are you talking about? Oh, the Baphomet symbol, right? As above, so below. But you're missing one key point in that. The next statement, as within, so without. What the Baphomet is really trying to show you, there is no above, there is no below. It's all within, right? It all starts and has its point of origin within. We talk about this all the time, right? So it's not about, we got to get out of this mindset, because that programming keeps us restricted in understanding, quote unquote, what we're calling the spiritual world or the spiritual realm. So we're not looking up there or out there for anything, because it doesn't exist. Okay. All right. Then it goes on to say, they are embedded or unfolded into the template of human consciousness, much like the schemas of the DNA, and have yet to be actualized. These could be described as planes of mind. Many traditions have mapped this terrain. Perhaps Sri Aurobindo's more modern psychological language has done this at best. And in his books, The Life Divine and The Synthesis of Yoga, right? And he's a Swami or a guru. If you're not familiar with, you can check some of his work out. He deals with a lot of the avatars, Swami guru aspect of the Hindu Dravidian spiritual system, all right? The first plane is the lower mind, which made its appearance somewhere between the fall of Australopithecus on the African savannas millions of years ago and the rise of the first wave of Homo sapiens, right? Let's talk about this real quick. When we talked about how humans evolved, right? I talked about this a little bit on the last class. Let's revisit that real quick, right? I gave some references, and if you didn't see the last YouTube video, you might want to go back and look at it. because we were talking about some interesting topics about where did humans evolve from, how were they created. And again, I was presenting information, not because I myself am saying that all of this is 100% accurate or true, because there's some things that I'm in alignment with and not, right? But I am very comfortable in my personal understanding from my personal growth. Is that understanding and alignment going to be in unison with everybody else's? No, but I don't care because I'm not worried about everybody else. I'm worried about myself, right? So this is a very intricate and detailed topic when we talk about how were humans created and how did we evolve, right? Now, the problem that comes in, and I referred to some of the work last week of Krito Mutwa. I would suggest you look at some of his videos and lectures and books. I referred you to some information of Dr. Delbert Blair, because in my opinion, these are some of the teachers that really went into this in depth. I mentioned some of the works of David Icke, I don't know how you say his name, who was heavily influenced, as I said last video, by Krito Mutwa. I would definitely look into some of his work. Now, the three main theories that I mentioned last week, and I'm not going to go all back into it again. I would suggest you, when you get time, you go back and take a look on your own. Some say we came from galaxies beyond the stars, right? And as I say, there's a lot of information, speculation, theories, concepts that could support that, right? There's been numerances of occurrences and recordings and data that suggest there have been extraterrestrial visitors here, right? People that have left certain traces. There's been sightings of certain crafts, some authentic and not. Because as I said last week, some of these are high-tech military gadgets they're testing that some people have seen and have confused over the years for extraterrestrial craft. You have to reason some of this stuff out. We would have to be fools, like I said last week, to think that we are the only intelligent life form in the multiverses. That would be ridiculous, right? Now, whatever your personal understanding is after that, it's personal, right? Now, there's a lot of theories out there about the life and the origin of extraterrestrials, and some people have claimed they've been abducted. I've never been abducted, so I can't say what that's like. I can't say I believe everybody that claims that they've been abducted. Do I believe that they've had some type of subjective experience and maybe literal? Yes, to a degree, based on some of these experiences that I read. But I can't validate it because I don't have no data to compare it to. But I'm just pointing out certain information to look at so you could come to your understanding. So again, there's things I'm in alignment with and I'm not. So there's that theory. There's the theory that say that we emerged from the waters, that we are amphibious water type beings. And there's a lot of information that supports this heavy. Right. And in relationship to ourselves, the micro and the macrocosm, in relationship to self and nature, as I said before, the human body is almost 67 to 70% water. So is the planet. We swam around in water for 9 months in the womb of our mother before we were birthed physically into this realm. Right. You can go to the cultures of the doggone. I'm just giving you a quick wrap up. I'm not going to get into this all again. I went into this last week. So there's that theory there. Right. And then there's the traditional evolutionists that really hold firm on Darwin's theory of evolution, that some say we evolved from animals, the intelligent species of apes, etc. In my opinion, in my research, there is some factual truth to all three of them. And in my opinion, that's because it's a conglomeration of all three of them. It's not one exclusively over the other and vice versa. And this is why there's such a vast level of information. And this is why there's vast level of knowledge that exists out here. Because some of that knowledge comes from those ancestral beings or ancestral lineages that those people descended from. There was a certain level of knowledge that those that came from beyond the stars came and taught, like the Dogon, for an example, right? You can trace the water beings right back to the Ogdo out of ancient Egypt. And I talked about that last week. There was a certain level of encoded information. Now, remember, Dr. Bynum is talking about here in the book, encoded in the DNA. That's why I was saying earlier, there's nothing that you're being told that you don't know. Even if it appears like it's new because you just haven't heard it and you're being reminded. And that's why you have that aha moment when you hear a certain piece of information that awakens you, right? So there's nothing that anybody's telling you, including myself, that you don't already know, right? So this whole concept of where we evolved from is a good understanding of how the lower mind started, as was just mentioned, because as we evolved, so did the mind, right? See, we think that most people were just put here and poof. No, there was a growing and an evolutionary process of how the mind evolved and how it received its intellect, right? Its shape, like the shape of the energetic soul, was in a process of upward evolution. While there was certainly a form of consciousness in our evolutionary line before this era, just as there is a consciousness in the other primate lines, the consciousness emerged into a mentalized consciousness, only a certain level of development. It was mind driven by fear, pleasure, drives, impulses, and modes of survival, right? Seeking learned much earlier and became critical to the survival of our species. It still lives in the deep reefs of our limbic system, in the fight flight response, in our darkest and most violent hours. It is also the greatest of our earliest kinship rights. Loud connection, sense of awe, and to desire to know the spirit informs much of what has come to populate and be the unconscious mind, right? Let's talk a little bit about the unconscious mind, because one must understand that before they can understand the superconscious mind, right? The unconscious mind is things that you're not fully aware of. They're there. And this is what I'm saying is some of us have gotten amnesia, right? And that amnesia is something that was perpetrated through indoctrination, right? And it started long time ago. It's a genealogy thing, right? The powers that be, and when I say, excuse me, the powers that be, those who created a lot of this, illusionary bullshit for power and control, spoon-fed it to us via religion, via faith and belief systems, dogmas. All of these things were created by men to keep us controlled, right? So in that process, we have forgot now. We have forgotten once what we truly are, what we are capable of, right? And how little capacity we actually use of the power of the brain, how we've been dumbed down and reduced to such a small percentage and fragment of what we truly are. So now we fall, I'm just speaking in general, I'm not speaking specifically to anybody, but most people now fall for anything. Most people can pretty much be deceived and spoon-fed some garbage due to the fact of this deep programming process. And as I was saying in the beginning of the video, this is what has got to change. This is what needs to be adjusted. Because if your way of thinking doesn't change, you don't change. So people that stay stuck in a certain thought process, such as a religion, become restricted. Because the problem is with an established dogma, belief system, or a religion, it never changes. So therefore, you never change because you're constantly repeating the same patterns. And remember, as I said before, repetition could be a good and a bad thing. Repetition can be used to program, and repetition can be used to deprogram. It's a two-edged sword, right? It's just a lot of it is dependent on how it's being used. So they have used repetition against us because they constantly pound into our subconscious mind what they want us to accept and embrace as our reality and our truth. Shit, they do it through advertisements all day on TV and on the radio, and they strategically run commercials. I told you, they also tap into your spiritual vibration. They know the vibrational frequency of how you resonate through the course of a week. Okay, what do I mean by that? Right? If you just look at the 7 days on a week from Sunday to Saturday, there's a certain vibration that is associated with each day, and that they use to pump to get you in alignment with what they're trying to get you to do. So let me give you an example. I'm going to put Sunday at the end because technically they use Sunday in Western society as the end of the week, even though technically it's the first day of the week, but really it's the last day of the week in their society and their norm. So as we know, Monday, they have you programmed Monday, beginning of the week, busiest day, whether it's for business, career, a job, work. So everybody knows that it's that Monday. Everybody hates Mondays. Monday's the beginning of the week, and it can be very stressful, overloading on all levels, right? Tuesday now, you've kind of, you settled in. It's second day of the week. You already know now that coming back from, the end of the week into a new week is now settled in. So Tuesday is kind of just your in mode day. They call Wednesday what? Hump day, right? So they're trying to pump into you. You're in the middle of the week now, right? You're there. You're not quite at the weekend, but you're not quite at the beginning no more. It's hump day, right? As they say, hump day, right? Thursday sometimes can be a very odd day and feel to it. Because Thursday now, again, it's that I'm almost at the end of the week. We're almost there. We're almost at the finish line. And then Friday comes. Friday, you start hearing you'll pay attention to how the advertisements change on TV and radio as you get from Thursday, Friday on. Now you're hearing advertisements for all things going on in your area, shows, concerts, movie advertisements, restaurant advertisements. They're trying to psychologically now get you in line with their frequency, okay? They're trying now to get you in line because now their goal is to get you out there this weekend and fill their pockets and spend all your damn money. So you're hearing advertisements for clubs, come out to the club, ladies' night, we got drink specials. So now you're getting in the mode. Oh, it's Friday, I'm gonna get off. Now the weekend's here. Friday night comes, there's a whole nother vibe in the atmosphere. I'm gonna go watch some movies, I'm gonna go out to eat, I'm gonna go party, I'm gonna go hang out with my boys and get fucked up, I'm gonna go drink. Right? Now you spend the next couple of days just tearing yourself to shreds, to smithereens. Right? And then Sunday comes. Sunday is the day of rest in Western society. It's, Sunday is for most, go to church, get all that guilt out that you did over the weekend, all the hoeing you did, all the drugs and how you fucking fucked yourself up all weekend. So now you're deceived. Now let's bring the vibrational frequency down. Let's dumb it down. Let's get you to come into church, right? Let's get you to relax because now we got to get you right for Monday because you need to come to the job ready to work on Monday to make us some money. And then the process starts all over again. You understand? Right? So it starts when we talk about the lower mind, they want you to stay locked into your lower mind. They want you to vibrate on that lower frequency. They don't want you to vibrate outside of that because if your consciousness vibrates outside of the mundane, then they can't control you. So they use tactics like this, right? And as I said before, from day one, you never really have a choice. You think you have a choice, right? You say you go out shopping to a store, you go online or you go on Amazon, right? Let's just use the concept of shopping. You think you have a choice, but you really don't because who gave you all those? Those are options that they put in front of you. You don't really have a choice, right? You have a choice from the options that they provided you, creating the illusion that you have a choice. And as I said before, if you see now over the years how sophisticated these search finders have come, like Google and all these other platforms, and how intricate the internet and the search engines have become on Facebook and Instagram, you see how the algorithms now pick up on everything you search on your phone and your computer. So you might go look up, you might have been on Amazon or you might have searched the internet for wine glasses, right? And then every time now you get on your browser, an advertisement on Facebook pops up for wine glasses, right? Don't tell me they're not they're watching your every move. They want to know what you eat, what you drink, places you visit, what your hobbies are, your likes, your dislikes. They want to know all of that about you. So they're trying to get us to a point where we don't even think for ourselves, right? And the pandemic was, not to get into all that because you got to be careful talking about pandemic, was that whole reset. Because now, shit, you ain't even got to get out your car to get food no more, right? Curbside. Your lazy ass could just pull up. Yeah, my lazy ass is out front. Bring me my shit. I mean, how lazy. But the more you get programmed, the more you become less self-sufficient for yourself, the more your natural creativity goes out the window. So they're trying to steal from you your imagination. They're trying to strip you of your creativity, because if they can get you to the point where they're doing everything for you, including what you're eating, how you're eating, they're telling you, look, you ain't even got to get out your car no more. Don't worry about it. We'll bring it to you. It's just one click of a button, okay? We've become so lazy as a society. That laziness is destroying our natural creativity. And technology is doing this to an extent because, as I've said before, if you go back, yes, not to sound like a disgruntled old head, but if you go back to my era, being 51 years old, if you go back to my era when I was a kid, right, in my adolescent teen years, we didn't have all these high-tech gadgets. We didn't have cell phones and PlayStation and Nintendo Switch and laptops and iPads and computers and iPhones and all this shit. Think about how we've become so dependent on that shit where we have no creativity no more. This new generation of kids are like programmed robots for the most part. They can't think for themselves. Remember when we grew up, we didn't have these high-tech toys. We made toys. We would use pots and pans and play the drums. We take the toilet paper roll and it'd be an instrument, right? We used to make our own basketball nets out of milk crates and hang them on telephone poles, right? You know, I grew up in an area where we took broomsticks and took black electrical tape and we made a stickball bat, right? These are things we did. We had to find our toys and make them and create them ourselves, right? We rode our bikes all day around the neighborhood and didn't have a care in the world. Think about when you, in that era, when you were a kid, you could be out from dawn till dusk, riding your bike around the neighborhood all day and didn't have to worry about getting killed or some sick pedophile trying to abduct you and molest you. And all the neighbors knew each other, right? Neighbors could whoop your ass if you was out of line. Everybody looked out for everybody's kids. It was a different time. Why? Because we had a sense of community, we had a sense of family, and we had a sense of creativity. Now, you don't see this shit no more. I told you, I've mentioned this before. How many of you guys have gone out to a restaurant, sat down? I've watched this multiple times over the years. People walk into a restaurant, I see a family, 5, 6 or more, coming into a nice restaurant, weekend, looks like, supposed to be a family night out. There's a thing we used to do called socializing, not artificial socializing, real socializing. They all sit down, and then first thing they do when they sit down, they all pull out their phones. And I observe. I told you, when I go out, I'm an observer. And I sit there and I'm watching. I'm like, look at this. There's a family of 6 sitting at a table, and nobody's talking to each other. They're all glued to this shit right here, which again is a blessing and a curse at the same time. It's killed our creativity because people depend on this. People have now a phobia for this. If there's people who leave home without it and have a panic attack. I grew up in an era, I know some people say, yeah, well, it's good to have in case you break down. Look, I grew up in an era, I broke down on the side of the road back in the day. There is no cell phone. We survived. You understand? Because back then we knew how to fix cars, right? We knew if a hose blew, how to fix it. We knew if the temperature gauge was out. The cars were different back then. Don't get me wrong. They're much more complicated now. These foreign cars I couldn't even work on if I tried. But back then we were hands-on. I've broken down in the middle of the winter and freezing cold weather in New York, and I broke down in the middle of the summer, blazing hot weather. We survived, right? The only phone that we had was connected to our wall, and it was a rotary phone if you were lucky to have that. And the only time you ever used any form of social media was if you had the privilege of having a house phone. That's what I'm saying. If you go from how quick, we lived in a time, we're living in a time right now where some of us watch this transition right in front of our eyes. We're seeing it. We're seeing how they've done this programming going back and have got us focused on the lower mind. There is no more true socializing no more. There is no family time. I come in an era where there was no, now people come in the house, you see people, this one's eating over there, this one's eating in the kitchen, this one's eating in his room, watching TV, etc. We don't do that shit here. In the house I grew up, you couldn't even sit at the table with a hat on. If I sat at the table growing up as a kid with a baseball cap on, I get smacked in the head. I did it one time when I was a kid. Never did it again. My grandfather slapped me so goddamn hard in the back of the head, hat went flying. It's just a disrespectful thing. And when you came home and you ate, everybody sat down and ate together, and you ate whatever the fuck was cooked, right? No, that's changed now. Now this one wants this one wants that one wants this one. Come on, man. Come on. We've got to come to the understanding of this is all part of this programming process. Hold on. Let me see. I got to let Raven. I didn't even see that she was here. Hold on. I'm adding her to the stream. I was trying to reach out to Raven. Can you hear me?
Yes. Can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear. How long were you there? I didn't even know.
I don't know. I've been bouncing in listening, so I don't know. I wasn't checking. It's cool.
Okay.
It's cool. It's cool.
Yeah, I just looked at the bottom. I'm still getting used to this. I like this StreamYard, but I'm still working the kinks out with it. But yeah, so I mean, feel free to interject as we're talking. Just feel free to chime in whenever. What's going on? I was trying to reach out to Kev. You want to see?
I think Kev is sorry about that,
He's
guys. I think Kevin is working. Yeah.
Kevin is working. Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah, so we're talking about kind of we're talking about, as you see the topic, Ascent, Unfoldment, and the Superconcious. So we're focusing now on the lower mind, how we've been programming, and how you've been listening. So as I was saying, at them times when we had dinner, we all sat down and we ate, right? If you were fortunate and you had a TV in the house, it was one TV. And everybody watched TV together as a family. Them days is over. Them days is over. We have to all of this is part of the deprogramming process because, like I said before, technology is a great thing because, one, what we're doing right now, we have the ability to reach people a large amount, like what we're doing now. This is a positive thing. But the destructiveness is, there's something you were saying earlier. I want you to share what they're trying to do with that neutral gender shit. Let's talk a little bit about that. No, because that kind of ties in to what we were talking about. But go ahead, explain what you stumbled across on the internet in a form that you had to fill out, and they're doing this on a lot of documents, a lot of forms. It could be just explain to them what you saw.
Yeah, so we all know when we are completing certain applications, they even if you're trying to buy a house, you may not answer, but trust me, the answer is being answered for you based on how you sound and how you present yourself. So the answer is being answered for you. Don't get it twisted, no way, shape, or form, even if you're applying for a car. So within any demographics that you're completing an application for something, they want to know your ethnicity and your gender. And I came across today, I need people to be intelligent. Like, can y'all just think for a 1 second? Okay. This non-binary gender. What is non-binary? Like, someone has to literally explain that to me, because none explicit, zero, void of. So if
Correct.
you're void of something, how can binary two of something? That's what bi, two. Y'all know that means something. So how can a non two of something? So you're saying you're void of two things? How can you be void of I'm like, make it
Listen,
make sense.
listen, listen.
Like make it make sense.
Listen. I want to stress something. In no way, like I said, a person. I want to make this clear because I don't want to come off. I don't want to. We're not offending anybody. Your sexuality. If you are homosexual,
No, we're not talking
transgender,
about
yeah. I want. I just. I want. No. No, I want to make this clear because whatever you are on this path is irrelevant, right? That doesn't have anything to do because I've gotten emails over the years about, well, what if I'm this and that? Can I be on this path? Which I think is foolish. But what I am saying is causing confusion, right? And there's an agenda in that. The problem that I have is it's going to confuse the shit out of these children coming up. Okay. We lost her. We'll get her back. I don't know what happened. She got kicked out. I think she removed herself by accident. We'll get it back. There's clearly an agenda to make these kids confused. I'm not in agreement or alignment with a kid not knowing if they are their gender is male or female. Now this can get a little dicey. I don't want nobody who might be part of the LBGT community because we've become so sensitive. Let me get her back in. Hold on. There we go. We got you back.
Sorry about that. That was me.
That's all right. We've become so sensitive as a country where, one, we can't even take a joke anymore. It's funny because I was watching, for an example, again, this tells my age. Rodney Dangerfield is one of my favorite comedians. I'm subscribed to his YouTube channel, right? And one of the most influential comedy, there was a special that came out in 1987 as a kid that was done at Dangerfield's in New York. And that was when the comedian at that time, Andrew Dice Clay, was introduced for the first time. And remember that? And I looked at the lineup and I'm listening to the content of the comedy that they were saying. And the first comment, I look at the bottom of the video, and somebody wrote, this was a time where America was actually tough and had balls and could actually take a joke.
Mm-hmm.
That shit spoke volumes to me because now, if you go back, for an example, and listening to the content of the comedy in that show, and there would be lawsuits, people would be losing their jobs, people would be shunned. How did this transition and change to the point where now you can't even have your own opinion and have your own personal feelings about something if it's not in alignment, with what they're saying? Go ahead. You want to say something?
I think that is really a 2000 thing because the more we come into this world of AI, because it is the world of AI, we're on
Correct.
AI. So the more we come into the world of AI, the more we are able to see things. You say it all the time. We have the internet and the knowledge is out there. It's the internet of all things. So when you're seeing all things, it's easier to manipulate reality. Is easy to manipulate the way you think, even how you feel about yourself, how you see yourself. I have even come across individuals that has been diagnosed with medical issues, but would then deem themselves in medical issues that messes with the intellect, but
Correct.
somehow, some way, they have figured out that they may be non-binary. They don't want to identify as a gender. What is cisgender? I need someone to explain that one to me too, because I'm lost on that.
Yeah.
This is my thing, as you were saying earlier, right? I don't care about anyone's sexuality, but when you start melting the two together, gender and sexuality together, that's dangerous territory for me.
It is.
That's dangerous territory. That's giving AI more information about you than it necessarily needs about you, because it's AI. Trust when I tell you. But
yeah, no. It definitely is. But there's a comment, right? Hold on.
Yeah, what's the comment? I
Yeah,
was
hold
trying to
on.
get to the comments.
What'd I do with it? I just had it. Hold on. Hold on. I'm gonna sign this one here. All right. This was from Amaret earlier. This is a good point. But I wanted there it is. I see it. And she has said, I feel like it's to ensue confusion, not to represent homosexuality. And yes, I agree with that. But they're using homosexuality as the vessel to do that. Like, for an example, in relation to this, right? There's a new thing in the last year or so. I think it was introduced. I'm not sure of the time frame, where they're trying to say now, when your child is born, not to identify it with a gender. And that's why I'm saying it's not really just homosexuality. They're trying to control every aspect of us, even to the point of what the fuck we are, right?
Hey,
So this is
let me step in here. I'm going to step on you real quick. So let me say this too, and let me say it to Amaranth. I have family members that identify as either homosexual, lesbian, gay, whatever the hell have you. And I can have these same conversations with these individuals, and they can express to me, even before I express it, they see the dangers of it all. So if someone that is of that nature sees the danger of it, for me, I got double, all my antennas are up, because that is telling me they too recognize it. How can you tell me that when everything has two genders? We know it. Your fucking battery in your car has two genders. It is called male and female, your positive and your negative. Everything has two genders. So I'm supposed to say that my cat is not a female cat. Like, what the hell? Like, make it make sense. And that's the problem. People, the game is being played, and people don't understand how they're being manipulated on all levels. And also, to your point, I have heard it that children are now wanting to be homosexual because that's all they see on social media. They think that's the thing to be. You are what you see. You are what you eliminate. That's why we say, it's good to be show your children good role models in the home, because that's what they're going to hopefully, present themselves out to the world. But if you just give your children these access to social media, and I don't even understand that world, like, why are they not picking up books and reading stuff for themselves? Maybe I'm just old school in my thinking. When my children was younger, TV, they're adults now, don't even watch TV, because it's more important for them to know how to read and to think for themselves and be able to understand what something is written in front of them, something someone has said. It was more important. They spent more time in the library than they did in front of a TV and outside playing with their friends to learn how to socialize properly. That's why you go outside and play with your friends, because you learn social skills within your peer group. But they don't do that anymore. Everything is online. But people don't understand how that manipulates even you. If you spend too much time on it, it manipulates you. As you were saying earlier, that's why people can't get their phones out their hand. Why you can't get the phone out your hand? Right. It's a whole virtual world. Your whole reality is now warped because it's wrapped around.
and how many years did we survive and never even knew what a cell phone was? To show you how they make us so dependent. I mean, I can remember, all right, my age, people my age, right? First time I ever had a cell phone, I'm just going to round off to, I think 98, 99. So I'm born in 71. I survived almost 28, 29 years without it. My whole childhood, my whole teenage years, I didn't have a cell. But I'm just going to show you how they are easy to introduce something and we become so dependent. But to what Raven was saying, there was a comment here from Hollow Vigata. Yes, you teach your babies. It's up to us. That's the whole point.
That's the whole point. Yeah.
It starts with us.
Yeah, starts with us for sure. Right. For sure. Yeah.
We have to. If we're throwing our kids in front of the TV with no supervision, because think about this. I know when I grew up, you couldn't sit in front of the TV all day. Because we were told if you didn't get your ass up and go outside and do something, I'm gonna find something for you to
If
do.
you didn't have anything to do, they'll find something for you to do. And 9 times it's going to be something you don't want to do in the first place. So what you do, you
Look,
make sure you're not stuck doing something that you
I'm
know
seeing
going to get their attention.
you see all these videos of these little girls, these little babies twerking on TikTok and twerking on Instagram, and they know the lyrics to all these vulgar songs. And there's no, I'm just like, this starts with us. Look, I'm not saying this in a religious sense. I'm just.
Wait, I'm going to stop you again. I'm going to stop you again. Listen, I was just on the phone with my cousin, and we was talking because she needed me to do something. And I was looking outside, I was in my living room. I was looking outside my patio. I saw two young girls, and they could be no more than 5th, 6th grade. Okay. And this to your point, I hate to stop you. I'm sorry. But they had on, okay, we're in South Florida. Right now, the feel like it's probably 93, 95 degrees. So let me paint the picture for everybody because they're not here in South Florida. It's hot as hell out there, right? So these two little girls, excuse me, excuse me, these two little girls had on tights, black tights, tight. To that you can see their little underwear print. Now, how do I know that? They had on hoodies, long sleeve hoodies out there in 93-degree weather. But what they was doing, they was standing in the field and they kept lifting it up, their hoodie up. Because the hoodies was long enough to cover their rear ends. But they kept lifting it up, and the smaller of the two kept turning like she's trying to get someone's attention. I'm telling my cousin, and I'm like, you wouldn't believe what I'm looking at. And I said, when we was growing up, that was to be said. You would never find a girl, and I grew up in the 80s. I said, you would never find a girl unless their mom just had absolutely no control of them. Mm-hmm. Dressed like that. There was such thing as modesty. You had your little girls to be modest, and you dress them modest, not because you're trying to hide anything, but because you know the elements out there.
You know what? There's something my mother used to say to me. I'm sure a lot of mothers said this to their parents. If you ever tried to walk outside looking tore up with your clothes or your hair wasn't combed, my mother used to say, where you going, boy? You go outside, you're representing me, right? You go outside looking like a hot mess. Our parents took that was a representation of the job they were not doing. That's my whole point. And that's how we need to treat. We don't treat it like that no more. Now it's just reckless abandonment. Now I know we've kind of shifted. We're talking about this is all the lower mind, right? This is what they want. This is what they want us to stay locked into. All this ignorance, right? And we've got to look at this process. And again, when we were talking about the gender things, right? It wasn't, like I say, it wasn't just about homosexuality, but they're using that as a vessel. They're using it. They're using it to cause confusion. Because if you, again, and it doesn't matter if you're young or old, you can see in the last 5 or 6 years how drastically that this has shifted, and there's such an emphasis on it in all aspects. So we can't deny it's there. All right. We can't deny that there isn't a concentrated effort to control us. And as I told you, and I don't want to get into the pandemic thing because you got to be careful talking about that in YouTube land. It was a shift. That's what the shift and the change was. The shift was for serious control on all levels, economically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. Like I said, man, this curbside thing, the curbside thing cracks me the fuck up. I mean, to me, it's the ultimate example of pure fucking laziness. I don't know why, but it just, when I pull up to a place and I see that shit, I'm like, how fucking lazy are we as people, man? But check it out. People are still doing it now. Let me show you how they can ease something in. All right, I can understand when we were in the hardcore stages of the pandemic, right? So at that time, it was supposed to be for safety. I get it. But tell me why now some people have become so reliant on it that now everybody's fucking doing it. That's my whole point. Okay.
because it's easy. Everyone loves everything that is easy, and that's the same too when it comes to from what I can see from my little viewpoint is that everyone wants everything easy and they want it quick. They don't want to exert no effort into something that they want. um that's on all levels. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Now, let me finish with this part of the lowest mind. Okay. It was the mind driven by fear, pleasure, the lower mind, drives, impulses, and modes of survival, seeking, learned much earlier and became critical to the survival of our species, right? So there's an aspect of the lower mind, which is your pure animal instinct, which also is survival, right? But that can be used against you, right? It still lives in the deep reefs of our limbic system in the flight response in our darkest and most violent hours. It is also the cradle of our earliest kinship rights, for our connection, sense of awe, and desire to know the spirit. Informs much of what has come to populate and be the unconscious mind. Over the cataract of millennia, it has brought us the normative mind of today. The normative mind unfolds both the experience and dynamics that we associate with the unconscious and our usual state of mind in its relationships. Psychotherapy, especially the body orientated therapies, right? Now, keep in mind, Dr. Bynum is a psychologist, so he wrote this book also from the mind of a psychologist. It plunges into the unconscious and its relationships with our dreams, passions, desires, traumas, and waking moments. So, who is creating your reality? Who's creating it? You are. You're shaping it by all of your experiences, willingly and unfortunately unwilling experiences, which usually links into your traumas, right? So what this is basically trying to show you, we are constantly building and destroying our universe simultaneously by our experiences. This is not something that's happening outside of ourselves. We're exposing ourselves to this. So everything that we were just talking about, when you're exposed to something, it affects you to some level or degree. What level or degree? What you allow it. So if we're aware, right, and we're talking about all these things we were just talking about, being aware is step one, because when you are conscious and aware, you have a better, approach of how you're going to deal with these things. But just think about that little child that's not aware. She sees her mother twerking, acting like a hoe, dressed like a skank, and the little girl don't know no better because the child is at a young age of innocence. They think, oh, I see my mom shaking her ass, I'm going to just go start shaking my ass. And then what does that do? It could send out messages to pedophiles, right? Because now you got a little 6-year-old girl shaking her ass, and we know shit. You can go online and search in your neighborhood, your state, your county, and you'll be surprised how there's pedophiles living all around you. Because
Right
remember, the
next door to
internet's
you.
right next door,
Okay. Right
okay,
next door to you. You don't even know it.
and you don't even know it. And now Mom Dukes doesn't realize, because she's so ignorant, acting like a hoochie, she don't realize she's parading her little 6-year-old daughter out there for looking pedophiles. That's my whole point. The unconscious, the seen, and the unseen, right? So when you're vibrating on the lower mind and you're acting off a raw emotion and you have no control how to distinguish between the unconscious and the conscious, this is how programming happens.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
you're a ripe candidate for religion. And now, mind, here's the sad thing. These are the same people that are super sanctified, saved, and in church every Sunday. That shit that kills me. Same one that's superfied, sanctified, and saved, saying, oh, Lord, was just out in the club, shaking her ass and acting like a hoe. But now all of a sudden, look, I'm not saying there's not a place for that, right? I'm not saying don't have fun. I'm just saying, we need to set that fine line when it comes from adults to children. That's all I'm saying. Because how we break the cycle of ignorance and how we can get this next generation to change, it starts with us breaking the cycle. And how do we do that? it's up to us to give the correct instruction, because if we're throwing these kids in front of the TV all day and all they're doing is watching the crap they're seeing on TV and all now streaming platforms is out of control. Lord, who knows what they're streaming on these devices, right? Because if you don't have parental control set on them, they're accessing all types of pornography, all types of other shit that they can get their hands into. Okay. So the lower mind. Anything you want to add to that?
I will add regarding the flight or fright mode. That was the whole pandemic too. The beverage. Let me just call it that. I don't want to say that pandemic word, but the whole beverage was about keeping you within your lower self, to keep you frightened, just reacting to something, not thinking things through, or even trying to learn or understand. As a matter of fact, I was saying the other day, I need to educate myself more on really where this whole chickenpox stuff come from, that we as children all have. Is I feel something, it's something deeper to it, a little sinister to it to me now, because it has come back up in relations to this whole monkeypox thing, right? It's not what they tell you it is. Trust me when I tell you. So those two tie into each other. So my mind is like, this stuff has been going on longer than I was consciously aware of it. It's like we all had chickenpox. They would put everybody together and one get the chickenpox and the next one has to get it. They just, everybody at the same time. I did it with my children. When my daughter got it, put my son with her, but he didn't really get the chickenpox. And so when it was time to get his shots, they wanted him to get the shots of the chickenpox. I'm like, no, I wouldn't allow it. I just said he had it. He really didn't have it. But then the chickenpox later on in life can evolve or become undormant, and when it does, it becomes the shingles. Like, this stuff is just too much. This is too much. So what they do is to keep you off kettle. This is what people like to call false flags. What people like to call, when you see one tragedy after the other happen, and it's the same type of tragedy in the news, and that's all they report, is to keep you within your lower self in that fright or flight mode, so you don't have time and space to really think things through. Because we all know, like you were saying, Dr. Biden was addressing, that is for you, that's survival mode, period.
That's it.
Period. That's when it's working at its optimum. But when you're using it based on something you don't really know what they be, keeping you in that fear base. Oh, if you go outside, you're gonna catch the beverage. If you just go outside, you're gonna catch the beverage, right?
Exactly.
If they keep you in that type of fear, it's being used incorrectly, and it keeps you suppressed and within your lower self. So that's what I wanted to add. Yeah.
Right. And there was something I just caught, man. I'll go back in the chat in a little bit, but it's something that I, Self Lord and Master, was talking about. He was referring to a rapper in the early to mid 90s. There was a rapper called Apache that had a song called Gangsta Bitch, right? And in the mid 90s, he was down with the whole Flavor Unit crew out of Jersey. I remember him well. And the funny thing was, if you remember, there was a period in hip hop during that time where the women were dressing like dudes, and then it even transitioned into R&B with TLC. You had the Brat, like in that video, girls were wearing the baggy jeans, the Timbs, the baggy shirts. So this is what I'm saying, how quick they are to introduce. Now, this is what I'm saying. Think, if you can't tell me they have an agenda, it's not just fashion. Okay. If you go back to just what we're in 2022, if you go back just about 15, 20 years ago, maybe a little less, how did it shift from baggy and saggy to tight as hell? Right? Where
so you can't walk.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, like where I went to high school, if you came to school dressing like some of these dudes are dressing, you wouldn't make it home. You'd get beat up. Okay. My whole thing is, it started like even back then, bringing that time frame up, right? Like obviously they were zoning in on the females at the time. Didn't really work because it didn't last that long, right? How did it go from being that to what it is today? Again, I'm bringing that up just simply due to the fact it's very simple to introduce what they call a fad and for people to quickly jump on board, right? So what's next when it comes to quote unquote fashion? What's the next stage? If it went from baggy and saggy to tight, what walk around half naked? Is that the
Yeah, I
next?
just about to say that. There's got to
That's
be. That's
what's
the only thing I can see. He walk around just naked. There's everything out there for the public.
That's pretty much
Mhm.
almost happening. All right, let's get into the overmind, right? Where did I leave off here? No. I'm sorry, not the overmind. Okay, beyond this normative or everyday bind of stable ego and good walking state, reality testing, there eventually unfolds what might be called a higher mind. Higher mind is what I want to talk about next. This is the consciousness seen in philosophers, exceptional teachers, and those of noble character. They are the heroes of cultures, our myths, our fables. They embody the best of our social and ethical ideals and aspirations, the kind of persons we point to and espouse as the best of the best. The intelligent and creative higher mind opens into one beyond in its moments of great insight and synthetic thinking. So, in a nutshell, as Dr. Bynum is using many different examples, right? So when we say here this aspect of the mind, as he likens it to people of noble characters, etc., heroes, etc., this is clearly now saying this involves somebody who has opened up their psyche or their awareness to a higher understanding, right? Because something I want to point out here, okay? Where was it? What kind of person point to? The intelligent and creative higher mind opens into the one beyond in its moments of great insight and beyond synthetic thinking. There's that word, synthetic. What is something
Okay.
that's synthetic?
Okay.
Artificial.
Not real.
It's not real. And this is all the lower mind. Unfortunately, all the things that we were just discussing in relationship to the lower mind are synthetic things that they create and program us with. Like I say, I just want to be clear on this. They want to, make you feel the way they want you to feel.
Mm-hmm.
They want to tell you what to eat, how to eat, when to eat. They want to give you all the options and the choices. When we talk about shadow work, this is where I think people get confused. People always go to Spookyville and they don't realize that the first steps of this starts in your mundane existence. You can't avoid that. So you can go do all this intense work. You can create all this high-tech spiritual stuff. But the bottom line is, if you don't address what we're talking about first and then proceed forward from there, it's usually not going to be a good outcome for you. I can tell you that right now. Okay. So this is very important for us to understand. It destroys a synthetic way of thinking when one evolves to this state here, right? The intelligent and creative higher mind opens, again, I'll say it again, one beyond in the moments of great insight and beyond synthetic thinking. This is perhaps what is meant by the phrase attributed to Freud, confessing that everywhere I go, I find that a poet has been there before me. Actually, what he said was the poets and the philosophers before me discovered the unconscious. So it's not that it wasn't there, right? Okay. As I said before, nobody, including myself, is teaching you anything you don't know. If it's in the unconscious, it just needs to be activated. Mhm. We've just forgotten. That's it. So I know sometimes people get geeked up. Oh, I read this book and I heard somebody say this. I saw that. It's just, yeah, you might get that aha moment. You might get that sense of awakening at the moment, but that's all it is. It's just an awakening. It's nothing new. You just forgot. That's it. All right. Anything you wanted to add to that?
No, that covers it.
All right. Let me continue on. Then Dr. Bynum goes on to say, what I discovered was the scientific method by which the unconscious can be studied. There arises after this a kind of illuminated mind, right? So we're going from the higher mind to the illuminated mind. And these are the steps or the ascent of unfoldment to the superconscious. That's what I'm building up to. And I'm almost there. I'm getting there. Okay. Okay. The illuminated mind or consciousness that allows the all-pervasive light to flash through in moments and acts of sublime creativity, especially in art and science. Moments of creative insight reveal aspects of the greater truth of creation. The artist and the great scientist reveal the inward essence and meaning of objects or subjects, the hidden consciousness of things. Their revelation is not obvious following along a purely rational or logical course. Things in nature are seen to be part of a wider nature, not isolated facts and events. And that's the problem where people who might be stuck in a certain ideology, right? When they're isolated in their own personal facts and events. This is why when you're talking to certain people who may be stuck in a certain belief system, a certain religion, a certain faith, a certain ideology, anytime you say something that challenges that belief system, that ideology, they get stirred up. They get, take it personal, right? Because they don't like nobody questioning something they may have believed or still believe in for a long period of time. Well, we say to that, we don't care, right? You're entitled to your own personal faith and belief and perspective and opinion. But you also have to understand there's going to be a lot of people out there who have a whole different approach. And if you can't handle that, then that's your business. That's personal. So we can't stay isolated in our facts and objectives on a personal belief system. Just because you've been doing something for so long doesn't make it right. That's the other thing. People, I've been this and that, or I've been doing this, or I've been this for 20, 30 years. That doesn't mean that it's right. It just means you've been doing it for 20 or 30 years. That's all it means. All right. All right. So again, it's about thinking outside the box, right? And he's going to get into individuality, which I thought is unique because we talk about individuation and individuality when we talk about the isolated consciousness of Set, for an example, on this path. You must be able to tap into your individuality. In order to see that, then you can understand this concept of togetherness that everybody talks about. But the problem is people that are stuck in dogmas and certain systems that mislead them, where they say everything's connected and we're all one. And we see everything that goes on around us suggests otherwise. There are differences between us. Don't let nobody fool you. Not everybody is the same. Okay, not one particular spiritual system, food diet, dogma, philosophy works for everybody. It just doesn't work. And you're fooling yourself to think that it does. Okay, the difference again of what we do and what others don't. This is a path of liberation. This is what we call the path of apotheosis, right? Self-mastery, self-deification. You're laying out the path. You're making the choices and the decisions. There's no priest, no rabbi, no imam, no guru, no swami, no elder, no this or that telling you what you can and cannot do. Okay? That's a system of mental slavery and indoctrination. If you choose that path, that's fine, but that's your path. Okay? That does not work for everybody. That's all aspects of the lower mind. People that still feel they need to embrace that and stay stuck in it are stuck in the lower aspects of their mind. It's that simple. You don't have to believe that. I don't want you to. Figure it out. Come to that realization yourself. Right? All right. All right. So then he goes on to continue. Isolated facts and events where we left off. Their insights draw us into a deeper truth of the situation beyond our usual limitations and increase our sense of expansion. Scientists and artists sometimes feel as though they are channeling vision and insight, literally translating from some higher source during their revelatory moments. But this plane or state of mind is difficult to sustain. The sweep of great music or poetry, as well as blinding insights of science, are the signature of this level of consciousness, but it becomes broken up uneven after the flow of the event. Think relativity theory of Beethoven's Ninth as the flood from this region, right? After this arises a kind of intuitive insight, intelligence, and level of consciousness. This is where the more subtle levels of consciousness begin to arise, as we said above, right? Things are apprehended beyond their linguistic and physical nature and understood in symbiotic, resonant, in a resonant way. Now, let me stop and say this. Now, for all people, we have another group of people out there who think everything's going to be fact-checked in a book. You're not going to be able to fact check everything in a book when it comes to the spiritual, when it comes to higher states of consciousness. That's the other problem. What book is that? We're going to find that. And like, you're not going to get the answers to everything in your spiritual growth and development in a book. The book are the tools, the roadmap, the guide. We're reading a book right now. We're using this to get that guide, that roadmap to come to the understanding, the awakening. But in your ritual work, and your personal research through your personal understanding is where that is going to be achieved. So even though we're reading, for an example, Dr. Edward Bruce Bynum's book, right? Dark Light Consciousness, Melanin Serpent Power, and the Luminous Matrix of Reality, we're using this book as a guideline and a roadmap to just help us get to that understanding. Is the book itself going to do that? Absolutely not. Okay? As I said before, when you are creating your own rituals and you're in your ritual chamber, your altar space, whatever you call it, the book is obsolete. It don't exist no more. The book is not what's going to do the work for you. You got to do the work, right? Now, can the information in the book assist? Most definitely, but it's not going to do it for you, right? So when subtle levels of consciousness begin, as it says here, begin to arise, things are apprehended beyond their linguistic words or physical nature and understood in symbiotic, resonant way, meaning the spirit has to be able to tap into it. Your spirit. Now, you can correlate this to your personal daemon, your higher or true self, whatever you want to call it. I don't care. But this is now the individual has raised themselves up beyond the lower mind now, right? So we're dealing with an illuminated mind, as he describes it in the steps to ascent of the superconscious, right? So this is talking about the person who has reached the stage of illumination, right? The Illuminati, the illuminated ones, right? The ones who seek intellect, enlightenment, right? That's a Luciferian statement or a Luciferian concept in nature, because that's what a true Luciferian seeks, is illumination, intellect, knowledge, right? So now you have navigated away from being controlled by the lower mind. The higher mind brought you to the awareness of the illuminated mind. So now the process continues. Now, why are we going over all this? Because remember, when I first came on, this is what I mean, and I'm trying to get in detail with it today, when I say you have to be in sound mind and sound body. And there's a process of being in a sound mind, because there's a lot of fucked up people out here. And some of them might be ourselves, unfortunately. And we need to get that in check. You can't, I did a video a while back. Don't go to the sick to be cured. I don't think anybody understood what I was talking about. A lot of people want to come up under these people who claim to be leaders and teachers and gurus, and they have mental sickness, and they don't want to address that. Look at a lot of your cult leaders over history who are mentally sick. Your Jim Joneses, your David Koreshes, your Dr. Yorks, your Yahweh Ben Yahwehs, the list goes on and on. Okay? These were people who, don't get me wrong, they were coming with information that's universally out there. It's not like they were saying anything new outside of the crazy shit they were saying. But then we find out there was a sickness that they had there. There was that they weren't in a sound mind, right? We have to be cautious of this. And this is why,
that's whether they recognize it or not. That's irrelevant. whether they recognize it, if they're not doing anything to correct it, and they would rather wallow in that dysfunction. It's nothing cute about dysfunction,
No.
right? We can operate in chaos. That's totally something totally different. And outside of um, being a sociopath, right, or being someone that's narcissistic, those are two different things. Being working in chaos, living in chaos. Some people can work and move within that,
Right.
but that does not denote uh, mental illness. And I'm not talking bad about anybody that has mental illness. Let me just put it there. Not at all, but you can't, like you're saying, you just cannot go to the sick, think to be healed, because if their mind is sick, you said it earlier, that's just another representation of where your mind is, and we all need to check it, so.
Correct. And this is important because this, now I'm not going to get into that today. Dr. Bynum has a whole section in this book about the dangers that can kick in, the mental illnesses and neurological breakdowns and neurological disorders that can kick in when a person is not aware of these things. And the reason why I refer to this book today in regards to this subject, if you know, for an example, Dr. Edward Bruce Bynum's history, he is a clinical psychologist from UMass with an acting practice to this day.
Sorry.
And he is a world traveler, and he's initiated in left-hand path Vama Marga. He's initiated in a lot of these Western African spiritual systems like Vodun and other systems. And he gets into all aspects of spirit possession. But one thing that this book does that a lot of quote unquote books on consciousness, knowledge, and spirituality don't do, he tackles the medical and the neurological aspect of it. And that's why I'm doing this today. I've visited this a few times here and there, but something just said today, let's talk about this. Because there's a lot of crazy ass motherfuckers out here. Let's just keep it real.
And you know what too, and as I sit here and think about everything you're talking about, and when you are going through the steps of even doing your ritualistic work, or your shadow work, dredging up things, you can dredge up so much that you can become overwhelmed and possibly display some dysfunctions mentally. And so it is good to just be aware of these things.
Yes.
So that's important.
Yep. All right, I have a couple more sections here. I'll finish this up, and then maybe we'll take some questions. I'll go through some of the comments to the best of my ability. The only thing I don't like about this, oh no, there it goes. I don't know why on the other one it wasn't moving. It was weird. Okay. All right. All right. So events and things are no longer engaged by the fragmented language of words. The interior knowledge seems descended from a pure language of images and light. The sound current and energy that merged up into the Vajrayani, then the others, Varnamanga, Ananta, Anatha. This is in the Dravidian or Hindu aspect. Anasalita, Samana, Umana, slowly unfold from within the enfolded spaces or ones above it. There appears to be an evolutionary arc to this. The traditions have different names for the levels of unfoldment, but the pathway is highly similar in each, regardless of what concept you use to explain it, or spiritual system. The progressive fragmentation and mechanization of the world that was apparent at lower levels of experience is superseded by episodes of prolonged contact with a sense of inward unity. Notice it said inward unity, not outward unity, not kumbaya, hold hands, spanking tamarines. That's not going to do it. Okay. All right. There is an inward unity or essence of all things. There is still a separative self-consciousness, but it is permeable. So there's still a level of individuality, right?
Yep.
We look, don't let nobody tell you the certain aspect of your personal individuality is important, because that's what makes you unique, right? And they're trying to strip us of that too. Because as I said many times before, I can't be you, you can't be me, right? You can't be nobody but yourself. And the part of the problem of stripping this awareness from us over the years is we live this illusion of trying to portray ourselves of something we're not. Most people live a life, because I was talking about earlier, you know, everybody wants to be portrayed now in the music business, and everybody's a gangster and a thug. And we know everybody's not a gangster and a thug. It's just not real.
No.
Some people live their lives trying to keep up with the Joneses, right? They just live a lifestyle they can't afford. Why? Think about what would make somebody go to the length to put themselves in a horrible situation just so they could keep up with the Joneses? I'm not interested in the physical act of it, but what thought process triggers one in the mind that they would go that length? See, that's a damaging aspect of your ego. When we were talking about ego earlier, that's a foolish part of your ego, right? This is what I'm saying. Most people live their lives trying to come across and profess and project an image and a likeness of something they're really not. Okay. That's the whole point. That has to be eliminated to get to what it's talking about here. Letting go of the false aspect of self, right? All right. So there's still a flickering in and out of individuation. There is a progressive simultaneity in the way things appear to happen. The intuitive level of experience transcends becausism in the usual casual perception of events causing other events to happen, giving rise instead to a good deal of what we call synchronicity or co-arising, what the Buddhists described as dependent organization, and what the physicists refer to as quantum interconnectedness. This is when we say, man, things are just flowing, right? Sometimes you get that, you know what I mean? You'd hit that peak in your spiritual work and you just feel like, man, shit is just flowing. Shit is smooth. Like you could feel it. You could sense it. You can't put it in words. Okay. This is what this is talking about. All right. This, of course, are only crude concepts and scattered experience of the process, and not to be confused with the actual sustained experience of this domain of consciousness. This level then flows inexorably into the one beyond it. Eventually, a kind of overmind, or your superconscious now, arises in which there is a sustained unity seen progressively everywhere. So now you're seeing this synchronicity on the subjective and the objective realm / consciousness. So when you hear me over the years talking about it's about creating harmony between the objective and the subjective, that's who the successful spiritual practitioner is. It's not the person that everything is subjective and all this world's an illusion and don't be in the world and suppress your ego to the fullest. And, you know, you need, you know, they turn veganism into a religion, and, you know, you need to sit eating nuts and berries all day in the lotus position and sit out in nature and talk to the fucking trees. And, you know, everything is subjective and spiritual. And they've abandoned the reality of there is an aspect to their mundane world and existence. Though you'll find the harmonized person who is successful on their spiritual journey doesn't negate everyday reality. They know I must be successful in my mundane life in order for me to be successful in my spiritual life. You can't have one without the other. And as I said before, and to this day, nobody has taken me on the challenge, and I would love, I would so love for somebody to take me up on this. If you are a person that thinks this world is not real, and you think it's all an illusion, and you created the illusion, and nothing is real, this and that, please stand in front of me. Let me punch you dead in your jaw. And you shouldn't move, flinch, or feel any pain because this world is an illusion and it's not a reality. Okay. And if you are afraid to do that, then somewhere in the deep recesses of your mind,
you know it's real.
Reality today. That's my whole point. I haven't had one person take me up on it yet. And I've been putting that out there for years. Because I could tell you this, I would never let nobody hit me in the face. I'm striking back.
Exactly.
Okay? Because I know, fact of the matter is, if somebody punched me dead in my jaw, that shit's gonna hurt. Okay, So that's the challenge to the fluffinators who think, oh, this world's just an illusion. None of it's real. And as I said, how do you know, as we are sitting here live on this broadcast, that you're not in somebody else's dream? You can't really answer that. Don't even try to. To all these spookies, so this world's an illusion. It's not a reality. Well, maybe this illusion isn't your illusion. Maybe you're in somebody else's illusion and you just don't know it. And you think you are because the illusion you've created, that you think you're conscious of the effect that you're not in this person's dreams, realities, or illusions. I'm just saying, don't answer it. Don't be too quick to jump the gun. And I'm saying all that to say this. Say, Baniti, why are you saying all that? I'm trying to say this is simply about having harmony between the objective and the subjective. That's it. Don't go to point A to the extreme and don't go to point B, because as I said before, if you sat home and meditated all day and fasted and ate berries and nuts, nothing would get done. Okay? How are you going to pay your bills? How are you going to pay your mortgage, your rent? How are you going to feed yourself? How are you going to sustain yourself? Are you just going to meditate things into existence? Or if you're that fucking deep, I know it's probably some, yeah, it's all, man. Stop. Please stop. Stop with the spooky shit.
If they that deep, I got some assignments for them to do. I need them to come through, pay off a couple of things. I got some assignments.
That's my own point. If you don't get off your ass and do it yourself, nothing happens. Right? And I think it was it Confucius or Buddha? There's an old saying. It was either Confucius or Buddha. If you meditated all day, nothing would get done. That's a saying from Buddha or Confucius. Don't quote me, find out, Google it. It's something I remember reading years ago in some of the works of one of the two. And then this is one of your most
Sounds
prominent.
like Confucius. Yeah.
It was Confucius in your areas of enlightenment set. So what is he saying? There's a time to work. There's a time to play. There's a time to meditate. There's a time to do ritual work. There's a time to get out there and do what needs to be done that's necessary for the sustainment of yourself. Right? It's what was trying to be conveyed there. Okay, it's about having harmony in all aspects, right? And that's one of the points of enlightenment that it's talking about here, or one of the points of the awareness, because a person who has that insight is able to see that and is able to carry that out. That's what creates an example of, like Dr. Bynum was talking earlier, a scholar, somebody who may become an expert in an area or field, because they've been awakened to certain aspects or levels of that consciousness. That's all it's talking about. We can't if we're stuck in the lower mind. If we're stuck in a world of twerking, and if we're stuck in a world of all I want to do is go out on the weekends and party and get fucked up, and then go to work and do the same shit all over again, then go to church on Sunday, ask for forgiveness, and then go out and be a hoe and a vagabond the following weekend, and just come back and do it again. That's the reason why I was saying what I was saying. There's no change, right? And anything that doesn't change, what? Dies. We're changing all the time. That's what I'm saying. Anything that doesn't change dies. That's a simple principle of metaphysics. And things are constantly changing. The 7 Hermetic principles alluded us to that. Nothing is ever still. Nothing ever stands still. It's always moving. It's always vibrating. And those vibrational frequencies are changing constantly. And through those vibrational frequencies, different things manifest. And they're constantly evolving and changing all the time. All right. I think I'm going to stop there. Maybe we'll go through some questions. There's more. I mean, we could be talking about this topic for eons, but I just figure I go through some key points in understanding ascent. So it's understanding the different levels of ascent of the mind and how they unfold in order for one to truly understand the superconscious, right? Now, look, I know there's different concepts on there, right? I know there's different concepts out there. I know there's different perspectives, but is what it is. All right, I'm going to scroll up to the top. I'll see what I can get to, time permitting. I can't promise I'll get to everything. I'm going to try to stick to questions more so than comments for the sake of time. So infernal blessings to all people that were here earlier. Serpent-headed mask, Michelle Renee, if you're still here, Jessica Lee, Brian Forche, Addo Art, etc., Sperlin Lily, Amrit's to save time with that. Infernal Blessings, if I missed you. What else we got? So let's look for questions. Yes, earlier Matthias H. had commented. I made a brief statement in the very early stages of the video when we were talking about how we have to be deprogrammed from religious indoctrination. And it came up somehow with the Bible and religion. And I was referring to the story of the Israelites, which I've done extensive classes on this on Patreon in the Esoterical Occult Bible Study class. And I'm thinking about doing that one part here, just as one part of it we did on the Exodus of the Israelites. Did it happen? Was it real? And matter of fact, there are scholars, if you go into the Oxford Annotated Bible, which I've used that in the class, these so-called Christian scholars are in agreement that they have attributed as that story of the Exodus is attributed to the story of a group of people who were in Egypt for 430 years called the Hyksos, right? Because the point I was making earlier was nobody can produce any record, and this is how you debunk spiritual and religious indoctrination. There's no historical record or data anywhere in Egypt on record that there was a group of people that lived in Egypt and were in bondage for 430 years called Israelites. That's number one. And there's no record of any man being in Egypt that raised these people up and made them cross the Red Sea and waved his hand and poof, and they all went across named Moses. It's not there. So I brought that up to show you that these stories come from other records of stories of other cultures that predated it. So yes, you can find a record of a group of people called the Hyksos or the Hekakasut, who were in Egypt for 430 years and were driven out by Pharaoh Thutmose I. And the story is eerie similar to the Exodus story in the Bible, right? You can't even confirm who the Pharaoh that Joseph was talking to in the Bible. They don't even give you the name because you can't confirm that it was real. Because if we had a name of that Pharaoh, it would be no problem. We'd be able to substantiate some type of timeline. Because in essence, if you take the Egyptian culture or civilization out of Genesis, you can't really prove anything in the Bible.
And who is Joseph? Where does the J come from? From Joseph?
Well, yeah, that doesn't exist. We know in the Hebrew language it's actually Yusuf, right? But the point being is there's no substantiated data to support that story is true. Can we see it recorded in other cultures that predate it? Yes, that's the point. So what I'm saying is what has happened. And some of these scholars are even saying that there was stories later of some Jews who came into Palestine or who called themselves Jews that made an exodus, but it was a very small group. And they questioned the magnitude of how many people the story claims this exodus. Well, I mean, there's a lot. It goes into detail. You can do a whole class on that. But the point to Matthias's question, yes, the Hyksos, without staying on it for too long. All right. Would you say, this was from Matthias Sades, would you say the ego is the demiurge? Panic said that recently. I'm not sure what Panic said because I didn't hear it. You can refer to aspects of the ego connected to the demiurge, but when it comes to the demiurge, right, one thing I don't promote, and I made this clear, I don't believe there's any archons that can eat and devour you and all that stuff, because there's a lot of people, and in books, I've read that in various books from various different authors on the subject of the demiurge. Because I say that because you can't be a god or goddess and think there's some beings out there called archons that can eat and devour you. The path that I teach, I don't care if it's demons, spirits, whatever you want to refer it, you control the demons and the spirits. They don't control you. Only if you allow them to through your ignorance and your inferiority. Okay? So, yes, there's different aspects of the demiurge. Yes, it definitely can represent a lower aspect of yourself because you can tap into certain, on a subconscious level, you can tap into aspects of fear, insecurities, a whole bunch of different things that go on there. But it's exactly what he said. I couldn't comment on that because I'm not sure what that was. Okay. But I do agree to that to an extent. All right. Hollow Vegeta says, had a OBE as a kid, out of body experience. All I remember is floating at the ceiling, seeing myself in the bed. All right. No, I wouldn't say OB is a misnomer, right? So what happened there was people have out of body experiences, but what happens is sometimes they don't have the full experience where they actually fully, or you left your body, right? But that whole where you vibrated, or as far as you evolved into a higher or faster spiritual vibration where it goes beyond that, where the self of I completely dissipates. Now, I don't know what you were feeling when you saw that, when you saw yourself, because sometimes fear and adrenaline can keep you trapped in a moment where you see just that, but it doesn't go beyond that. I'm not saying that was the case with you, because I don't know. But sometimes, as I said before, when we're having an OBE, we can get caught in between that event because our adrenaline can kick in. And when our adrenaline kick in and fear kicks in, our adrenal glands give off chemicals called endorphins. And sometimes when the spirit is ready to snatch you and take you on a journey, it can't take you on the full journey because your fear, and it could be subconsciously if you weren't conscious of it at the moment, was happening simultaneously. And that fear was keeping you where you couldn't fully, take the ride or the journey that you were going on. I'm not saying that's the case, but that could have been the case, right? I'm not sure. Hold on. I'm not sure if that word was spelled wrong. I want to make sure it's not a typo because I'm not familiar with that. Hold on. Okay. I'm familiar with it in regards to treatments. Okay. Hold on. Let me just make sure. Now, when in reference to the mushroom that I self-law you're talking, whether it's ayahuasca, whether there's different forms of shrooms, right, or hallucinogenics that can be used to activate the DMT molecule, right? But here's what we got to be aware of. Like when you go back to the shamans, right? If anybody's was initiated in the mysteries of becoming a shaman, that hallucinogens were used ritualistically to tap into every aspect of the initiate's subconscious mind because they had to master and address their fears also. And the only way you can unlock those fears was to really, through the hallucinogens they felt, by activating the DMT molecule so they can have the experience. But I've always posed the question, you can also activate the DMT molecule. And again, there's nothing wrong with using hallucinogenics in a safe manner, knowing the quality that you're getting, regardless of what kind of shrooms or hallucinogens it is. But we also have the ability to activate that DMT molecule without the active hallucinogens, which takes a lot more discipline and work. Because if you can only activate that molecule through hallucinogens, then it's a testament to how much more you got to do to work on your personal power, right? So I'm just saying that in general, not just in reference to you and the question. We have to have the ability to do it at will when we see fit, not where we need something that has to just aid us to get to that point, right? And that's the goal. Through your ritual work, you have the ability to do that. Does it happen right out the gate? Obviously not. It takes work, it takes time, it takes years of practice, but it can happen, right? All right, what else we got? Yeah, and that's what they do. When I was talking about earlier, Sunday to Saturday. Well, really Saturday. Really, it's Monday to Sunday. How they set the tone for the week in Western society here in America. I told you how they play with the frequency and the environment. You got to remember, you have 12 occult nerves, and I talk about the 12 brain magnetic particles. A lot of us have them; they're damaged, right? Because of a lot of the disruptions through bad food, technology. This is why a lot of us get neck pain. A lot of us get headaches constantly over the years, off and on. We can't explain it. We get it on one side of our head. We get it at the top of our head because a lot of these frequencies that we've been exposed to for many years are killing those magnetic particles, right? And they almost use those as conductors to control our thoughts and how we feel, right? So that's why I was saying earlier, right? And I don't know if you were on when I was saying that earlier, Raven. Like Monday, it's Monday. Oh man, it's beginning of the week. It's a lot of work. It's always the hectic day at work or your business or your career, your job, whatever you do. Tuesday is just like, okay, I got past Monday. I'm here. Wednesday is hump day, right? They let you know it's the middle of the week. Whatever you got to get done, you better start wrapping it up, right? That's how they do it. Thursday, yeah, I'm almost there. And now you start, you're daydreaming about the weekend and what you're going to do. And poof, Friday's here. Everything now. Turn on the radio and TV. Everything on the radio, everything you're on it, announcing clubs, ladies getting free drinks before 10, such and such performing tonight. And now you're planning on where you're going to go, get fucked up, party, have fun. And then Sunday comes. Oh, man. I got to get back into, it's time to go to church. It's tone it down because I need you to be a program robot for Monday morning. So let's bring it down a notch, and then I'll start it all over again on Monday. Yeah, that's what they do.
That's what they do.
That's what they do. All right. Justin Pollock said earlier, in regards to all of a sudden I'm supposed to be Brad Pitt in the Fight Club on Saturday. Exactly. That's what they want to. They want to. That's what I'm saying. And they can influence. I mean, look at many people. I gotta go get a new outfit. Listen how they program you, man. I gotta go. I'm going out this week. I gotta go get. I gotta. Not only that, this is a whole process in doing it. Okay. So yeah. Hollow Gator says, I DoorDash, so I'm entirely employed by lazy people. That's true. Yeah, 90s was the dopest. Hashtag old head. Yeah, I gotta laugh because now I laugh because it's like stuff I used to hear my pop say growing up. I find it's true. You find yourself now saying the same things because I remember my pop saying, "Man, you young folks don't know what good music is." And I used to laugh at him like, "Oh man, come on." Now I'm like, here I am, 20 plus years later, and I'm like, "Shit, he was right."
You was right. Look, I woke up this morning with Atlantic Star on the brain. I had
Atlantic Star, yeah.
Atlantic Star. I woke up with Atlantic Star on the brain. Half the people probably won't even know like who's Atlantic Star. And I had to go. I had to turn it on this morning. It's real R&B. Real R&B.
Well, and again, and I've talked many times about that over the years. The power of music, the power of sound, vibration, frequency, and the influential impact. And there's a negative impact of words and lyrics. Because when you attribute the impact of words and lyrics to a certain sound, vibration, frequency, and tone, that can activate higher spiritual faculties and senses within you. So it's great. I'm glad you bring this up because there's a reason why you woke up with that on your mind. You just
It
didn't
is because then I did check the lyrics too to make sure I remember the song, but I didn't remember all the lyrics. And I'm like, okay, I get it. I got the message.
Exactly.
So yeah.
And that doesn't just happen randomly. That's what I'm talking about. It doesn't happen randomly. It happens for a reason because, and this is why, a matter of fact, as we speak now, and I didn't get a chance to read it. I got an email from one of the students in the Patreon classes. We're in the midst of an exercise where we created a musical playlist. And we're using music as a tool for time travel and emotional healing. And to address, because music will unlock, especially as I said in that class, in the part of the shadow work that we're doing, music really is the soundtrack to your life. And when you go back and reflect over the decades, and you go back from your young childhood to your childhood to adolescent to teen to adult years, you literally have a soundtrack for each portion of your life. That's facts. And you can go to certain songs that activate those key moments in your life, good and bad.
True. That's
right?
true.
So music is a powerful ritualistic tool when used correct. Yeah, I mean, today, like last couple of days, just to give you an example, what I was pumping in the car. I was pumping some Lords of the Underground. Hadn't heard that in a while. right? I said, man, I got to hear some Lords of the Underground. Just came in my head because that was an influential album. The first one for years. At that time, I was listening to the best of Redman. I mean, that's just the mode I was in. I mean, Redman's joints in the early 90s. I was listening to Black Moon Enter the Stage, the first album. This is what I was cranking recently. Obviously, Rakim, because we just recently saw him. Because as I said before, and this is a fact, if you listen to music of your generation, it keeps you young, it keeps you healthy, it rejuvenates cells. Literally, it can create healing on all levels. You'll find out, and I didn't believe it until put on some of this newer trap music, and you feel out of sync. I just don't feel right listening to it.
I can't do it. I can't do it on no level. I can't.
Now, I'm not talking about. There's some modern day music that's good that has that feel to it, like Soul Sonic, like Bruno Mars, that group that he's got with can't remember the brother that drums. He's really good too. There's some good groups out there. There's a group I would suggest. I was just cranking them today, and I came across them on one of the underground hip hop pages I'm on. There's a rap group called Coast Contra. If you haven't heard of them, check them out. They're awesome, and they were just on the Jimmy Fallon show, which I didn't even know. And I believe they're out of Philly. Check them out. It's a group of 4 dudes, and man, they combine like modern day with back in. I mean, they got that Leaders of the New School Tribe Called Quest vibe to them, but on a modern type level. Yeah. So I'm not saying there's not current groups out there that are not good, but I ain't gonna lie, there's some shit out there I can't play. It makes me feel old, like that trap music, whining shit. I can't get with it. I'm sorry. No,
gives me a headache. It gives me literally a headache. I can't stand someone.
It's fucking ignorant. Is what it is.
I can't.
Let me stop. Oh yeah, the cards. Our self-Lord and Master. Remember that we used to take the cards, whether it was playing deck cards, we used to put them on the spokes of the bike to make it sound like a motorcycle. I did that. I know exactly what you're talking about. I did that. Oh man, I did that all the time in the summer. You want everybody to hear you coming down the block. Yeah, we did a little shit like that. That's how we were creative, man. However, Gator says, used to be outside in our apartment complex till midnight playing football. Yeah, everybody. We'd be out there. We play football in the street, wiffle ball, stick ball, stoop ball, handball. I mean, that was our toys, man. We didn't have all these gadgets. That was our toys. That's taken away. Now
it messes with the imagination. So what they did in essence is lessen your imagination because they're giving you everything at your fingertips. So you don't have to think about trying to invent something to do. You don't have to imagine whole scenarios with your army men or your cars, your dolls, whatever. You don't have to imagine something. It's all laid out in front of you. That's what they've done with the gadgets.
Correct. And then earlier when we were talking about how back in the day when you actually used to sit down and eat as a family, like I was mentioning.
Back in the day when I was not a kid anymore. Every time you say that, I want to say that.
I was talking about an incident one time where I sat down with a baseball cap on. Man, never did it again. My grandfather slapped the shit out of me because it was a sign.
I told you one time about, not to cut you off, but I believe I told you one time that I was in the kitchen talking to my mom and I said the word gooder. She popped me in my mouth, literally. And I turned right back around trying to explain whatever it was and said it again. She popped me in my mouth again. And it could have been about, I don't know, a couple of years back. I was listening to this commercial was on TV and the guy was going through good, better, something. I don't know, it was coffee or something like that. And he said gooder. And it caught my attention. I'm like, no, they are not making that a word. And I got popped twice in the mouth for saying a word that is not a word. Like, yeah. And then you'll get popped in the mouth quick.
Yeah, that's how it was. And then our self-Lord and Master say, yeah, you had to ask to be excused from the table. That's true. You couldn't just get up.
Oh, no.
Look.
No, you couldn't get up.
That's why one of the posts I put on Instagram about a week or so ago, it was like when we came home from school, before you could even go play, you had to do your homework. You couldn't go. You
Your
couldn't do shit.
homework, you better get out your school clothes. You better still be
All
ready
that
in
shit.
your school clothes. You better get out them
All
puppies.
that shit. You couldn't, if you didn't do those things, you couldn't go out and play. Couldn't do none of that shit. First thing my mother used to ask me when she came home from work, is your homework done? I mean, she didn't even set her keys down, take her jacket off. It's the first thing that she would say, right? Get over here. Did you do your
Get your
homework?
homework done.
It's my little man
Get
right
the
there.
homework done.
Did you do your work?
Not yet. So help me yet.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it's a
Yeah.
different time, you know.
Mhm.
Yeah. All right, let's keep going. See what else we could get to. Let me see if there's I can get to some questions. All right, we addressed that one there. Before, let's get that one. And we talked about, again, reiterate, not to go back into it too hard. It starts with the parents, right? A lot of this stuff that's coming up, it starts with us as parents. If we just throw these kids in front of the TV with no supervision, no discipline, no discretion, like for an example, my little guy you just saw, he has a tablet. He doesn't take that tablet to bed with him. It doesn't stay in the room with him overnight. Tablet stays charged right here on the counter. And when he is on it, most of the time when he likes to be on it, it's like right after he eats or something. We monitor what he's watching. I'm not talking about be fanatic because these kids got to experience life. They got to fuck up. They got to make mistakes.
Of course.
And you can't shelter them because there are going to be times where you're not there with them, right? But what you can do that's in your control, you can do the best of your ability to push them in the right direction. Okay. So it does start with us.
It's broadening their horizon. It's allowing them to, it allows them to develop their imagination because that's what's being taken away. They don't have their imaginary friends anymore because they have all their friends on their tablets. Yes, they must know electronics because that's the way of the world. They cannot not know it, but that just cannot be all they know and do. That's the danger, and that's what we're just trying to communicate. You just can't do that.
Yeah. Now, our self-loaded master brings up an interesting topic. Now, I've never had a girl, so I don't know what this is like having a female child. He says in here, my children couldn't even date until they were 16. I got no problem.
I have a female child.
Yeah, I can't speak. It's a little different. I got 2 boys, so I don't know what it's like. That would be a tough thing for me, knowing I could be a little crazy. And I think part of it as men, we know how we were growing up. Let's keep it real. We know the things we did, and are we feeling like that because we knew how we were? And are we trying to put that protective veil? Sometimes we're doing it in regards to that. I'm just saying, I don't know because I don't have a female child. So I'm not speaking from experience. So I don't know, you maybe can share because I know you have a girl. So did you let your daughter date at an early age?
I tried her just to see what she would say. But to be clear, I have always had open communication. I'm not the lying parent. Never sold them on fairy tales. And if they was old enough to ask a question, I answered it truthfully. So when she was 16, I said, well, you want to start dating the boys? What's up? She just like, I don't know. I said, well, I don't know means no. And it was dead. It was just a dead topic. And it stayed that way until she was in her 20s and she started dating.
Yeah.
But that was just her. I have, female cousins and theirs went a little differently because I don't, theirs just went differently.
Now, I can say growing up with 3 sisters, what I saw, what my mother and father did, it was around the age Hollow Vegeta said. They started probably dating around 16, 17. My mother didn't play that shit before that. I remember one time with me, because, like in New York, a lot of the houses, like where I grew up in Queens, they were 2-story. They used to call them mother-daughter houses. So we used to have a whole downstairs basement that was almost like another house. But my room was downstairs. And I'll never forget one night, it was me and like 3 of my friends. My mother didn't play that shit. And we used to have a side door and a back door to get into the lower level of the house. And then the front, You went up.
Oh boy.
Yeah. Well, I snuck a bunch of friends, male and female, a couple of my friends and some girls. We figured we have a little hangout session in the basement. Oh man, it didn't go too well for me. My mother came in, kicked that door down, and called the girls hussies. I'll never forget that. Said, "You hussies, grab your coats and get the fuck out of my house. You go home." Pointed to my friends, embarrassed the shit out of me. I was about 14 years old. I'll never forget it. I think I was about 13, 14 years old. We were trying to have our little thingy thing, and that didn't go over too well. So
I did that to my son, though. I did that to my son. He was in middle school. And he going sixth grade at that. He gonna introduce me. I ain't call her hussy. Well, I used to say heifer. I said, "You talking to that heifer?" Right. I said heifer was my word. It wasn't hussy. But he gonna introduce me to this young girl in the sixth grade. This is my girlfriend. I bypassed him. I said, "Do your mama know?" I said, "Where's your mother?" It was at a function at the school. I'm like, "Where's your mother?" I know her mother had to be. "Oh, let me meet your mother. Let me explain to her that you're trying to date my son." That went whole. That ended quickly. She didn't want that smoke, whatever smoke her mom was going to give her if I had approached her with that information. So apparently she wasn't supposed to be doing something like that. But yeah.
Right. No, it's true.
Yeah, that is from a female perspective. Me being a female, and I'm not a male, can't say anything. I don't think younger than that you are mentally prepared for that type of scenario.
That's true.
Yeah, I don't think so.
No, and then I guess you have to factor in every child matures a bit differently, right? That has to be factored in. Again, I don't know with a female child. I probably would be overprotective.
I still would say no. I don't care how mature. Yeah, that's just still a negative. But yours may be, but who they pulling in may not be.
Well, but then the other thing we have to consider are we talking about back then or today? So it's a whole new playing field today. Because there's crazy shit.
Today it'll be till they 30. Okay.
Well, but think about this. Back then, you didn't have to worry about a kid sneaking around on Facebook and Instagram. So now they have things they could do. Back then, that didn't even exist. So you couldn't even do those things back then, right?
Well, it's not just that, too. You have to be more conscious, like what you were saying earlier about the little babies twerking and stuff. You have to be more conscious of the unsavory characters that are online. You have to be conscious of trafficking. It was always there. It never was a new thing. It was always there. But the trafficking bit of what's going on nowadays is just off the chain. You have to really, that's why this social media and all this stuff is such a danger, because, kids are being exposed to trafficking, you display too much. I don't understand how women in particular can put their daughters on display like that. That bothers me.
Yeah, I can't understand.
Because I can see the big picture, because we all know about the dark web. We all know it don't take much for people to find and locate and track.
Right.
Okay, no, it doesn't take much. And that's to display your babies, yeah.
Right. We're not up against that. Back then we weren't. You're up against that now because we have this, right? Like you say, the dark web. You got predators that are on there all day. I mean, that's crazy shit.
But when we was growing up, it was easier to see the predator, right?
Yeah.
So because everybody in the neighborhood knew everybody. You knew the homosexual in my area was Twiggy. Everybody knew Twiggy was the gay prostitute.
Without incriminating anybody that grew up in my neighborhood. If you harmed any children, you had a way of disappearing. Let me just put it that way. And that happened twice in my neighborhood growing up. And all I'm going to say is this. Nobody knows nothing. That's all I'm going to say. Nobody knows nothing.
Nobody.
We didn't rely back then on the police and outside people to fix our problems. Because when you grew up in a real neighborhood in a community, we took care of our own problems. If it was an in-house problem, we took care of it. And guess what? Some of the police that lived and grew up in them neighborhood and communities, they didn't know nothing either. That's just the way it was. And sometimes, anyway. But here's another interesting question. is this was from earlier from a Muslim mystic. Is Islam's Dajjal the demiurge in the Islam context? Well, in Islam, they say the Dajjal is the Antichrist. I mean, symbolically, I mean, you could see some connections there, but in Islam, according to Islamic teachings, they believe the Dajjal is the Antichrist. Now, the Antichrist can be symbolic of a lot of things, but when we look at it in relation to ourselves, it can be everything anti that's productive for us. So it depends on if you're looking at it as a concept, but if you're a traditional Islamic practitioner thinks literally the Dajjal is going to be a person. So it just depends on your perspective. It can and it cannot be, right? And then Young Finest had a question in regards to that. At death, will the demiurge be the first contact of entities to come to us to reincarnate back in this 3D existence? Yes, a lot of entities, not just entities, but your fears, right? A lot of traumas, things that you have not addressed. In order for you, quote unquote, to make the correct transition, there cannot be no lower attachments to this realm. This is why there's such a thing called disembodied spirits, right? Where some describe seeing the image of certain spirits that had a traumatic event that died in a certain place or a certain spot, and some will say at the same time every year they see the image or the silhouette of that person that same time every year where they died. Usually that's a sign of an individual who still can't leave this realm, right? Because they're trapped here for a particular reason. So whether you're using the contact of the demiurge, can lower vibrational beings keep you trapped here if you have not mastered yourself? Most definitely, that can happen. But here's the deep thing, and it goes even further. Anybody that claims they know exactly what's going to happen to you at your time of death or transition is full of shit. Okay? Because if we knew that, we wouldn't even be on here having this conversation. And I don't care if you've ever heard anybody talk about their personal experiences. You can't go by that because that's not your personal experience.
Because they have their own personal beliefs.
That's it. But nobody knows exactly what's going to happen to them and how it's going to happen to them until that exact moment comes. Are there a lot of theories out there? Concepts? Yes. But you can't accept that as your own personal reality because you didn't have that same experience. It's that simple. But how we get past that hump, why we are here in the now. And the important thing for us as left-hand path occult practitioners, we deal with the now, the present moment, because tomorrow isn't guaranteed to come. We don't even know if tomorrow is real. The only thing that's real is what's happening in the present moment. And that understanding comes when you transcend what they call linear time. Linear time keeps you trapped to that thinking. Because while we're worrying about what happens to us when we die and what's coming for us, we're focusing and taking the energy off of what's going on in the moment. Now, that doesn't mean you don't study, you don't be aware, you don't put thought to some of these things. And I'm expounding further on your question, and I'm not just directing it to Young Finest. I'm speaking in general now to everybody. What I'm saying is one thing we must always do to be locked in is stay in the present moment, right? The past is the past. We've learned, we know the past. We filed it. It's past. It still exists because when we look at this false concept of linear time, we know time just contracts and expands. So the past is still out there. The past is real because we experienced it. But there's an old saying, if you take care of today, tomorrow takes care of itself. We can't always look at the approach because your reality may not be the tomorrow here, right? Or what we call, it might be your time to transition. We don't know, right? I know we like to walk around thinking we know everything, but there's only one thing we never know: the day and the time when it's coming and exactly how it's going to happen. You don't know that. Don't fool yourself. Don't come with all, I hear people over the years and books and lectures come with all this hocus pocus shit. If you was a real person, you would just say, you really just don't know. And that's one of the motivating driving forces of why we're on a spiritual path. Right. And one thing the left hand in the path cult does, it teaches you to understand the mysteries of death. One, first and foremost, what it's not, something to be afraid of or fear. And two, to embrace it as the doorway to your next, transitional phase. It's not, we don't fear it, we embrace it. Samael, for an example, gives you a deep understanding of that. And we do work to tap into that, to those mysteries of that, right? Because bottom line is, again, nobody can tell you exactly how it's going to happen. No book, no past grimoire, no past ancient text, nobody's personal experience, none of that shit. Because you just don't know. Be real with yourself. Okay. All right. This was earlier. Superthenium. I had a huge knot in my neck and severe tension aches. I couldn't get out of the bed and function or think straight. I mean, it could be for a multitude of reasons. Like I said, we're dealing with a lot of unforeseen things out here. Okay. And as I said, the technology. Now, I'm not going to get into I'm not just talking about the 5G shit. And first of all, the 5G didn't create coronavirus. Okay, let's just stop. Okay, because I don't see no more 5G people on the internet since that shit got debunked. All right, because they've been developing 5G long before.
Long before, right?
They've had 5G for years. That's nothing new. Okay, and I know people were trying to say, ionized radiation and the levels of it, activated or mutated cells inside the body. I get all that, but there's other frequencies out there. Now we've been learning about ELF, extreme low frequencies, for years. They've been using that are way more powerful than 5G, right? And Dr. Delbert Blair used to talk about extreme low frequencies all the time. That's something that you can't hear with the naked ear, right? But it's something that has a detrimental effect on your brain, on your body, your nervous system. Man, shit. What's more damaging is these nuclear plants they have all over the world.
I was just about to say that it's the nuclear plants. It is also all of the satellites that's twiddling and twirling up there in the atmosphere that they keep playing with, right? That is blocking. Okay, that is doing a lot of that damage. And they do have technology that is beyond your 5G.
Listen, let me show you something. Let me show you something, which he just said. We all see this setting on our phone. When you turn on your location setting on your phone, it is a satellite. And this is something I learned from Dr. Blair years ago. Anytime that is on, they can transmit frequencies through this directly to you. Mm-hmm. Understand, this is more damaging than coronavirus. This can be more damaging. This literally can be used as a vessel and a satellite. Anytime you have on that location button, it tells them everything they need to know about you.
I'm going to do you one better. It doesn't need to be on because, again, they have technology now. They have improved on it. Trust me when I tell you, they have technology now, and it's called, God dang it. It's connected on the airplane. And it can spot a soccer ball. It can pinpoint a location of a soccer ball from over 500 miles away. You don't see the plane twirling, but it sees you. It sees you in 3D exactly how you are. It sees everything, can pinpoint it, and don't need the location on your phone. But they will use it and cipher everything that is on your phone.
That's correct. That's what I'm saying.
So I love learning. So let me just put it
there. There's more things that everybody needs to be aware of, right? And then the next question was, this was from Queen. Dancing was created for dancing to the gods. Dancing is sacred. Yes. And you see that in many cultures, right? All over the world, whether you go to the Mediterranean, Africa, Europe, here in America, the Caribbean. It's always been a form of expression, and it's been incorporated in a lot of spiritual systems, right? Even when you look at, Ifa, very, very big. There's dances specifically to each Orishi, right? In the Native American tribes, et cetera, et cetera. So yes, dancing now, but let's be real though. You can come here to the West. That's turned into certain areas as Hoochieville too, right? It can also be, but you're right as a whole. I do agree with that. I'm not sure with that. This was from Anthony. Not sure if I'm messing your name up. May not be many people's cup of tea, but Satanism stressed that self-reliance on a worldly and a psychological level. Now, it depends, because there are some Satanists that are, I'll be honest with you, really religious. And again, I'm not sure, in relationship to what, but we should be to some degree psychologically sound, right? The level of it, depending on different schools of thought, yeah, that's going to vary. But I've known over the years some people, quote unquote, who call themselves Satanists, and I found them to be more religious than Christians. So I don't even think I can categorize. It goes beyond. So it really depends.
Mm-hmm.
Really depends. I self-lauded master when Red Man was with Eric Sermon, and it was the good old days. Yeah, I was listening to a lot of that stuff during that time, right? When I was talking about earlier, right? Mio Law says, "Oh, so happy you caught the end. Oh, good you made it here." Yeah, we all do run off of different vibrations. All right, what else? I think I'm almost at the end here. Almost at time. Thanks for the videos. JW says, first off, thanks for the videos, man. I come to the left-hand path out of interest of the deity Set. There's a lot of good information on here on Set. We've done classes on that. That's one of my Patreon. I consider one of my Patreon spirits that I work with. It's one of the ones that drew me to this path a few years back. Are there any solid God meditations working with Set? Yes. Let me give you a couple of books you might want to look into. Set, the Fury of Egypt is a great book where there's some great work in there. Set the Outsider is another book. That's by Don Webb and Judith Page. Also look into, I believe it's the Seven Faces of Darkness too by Don Webb. Yeah, there's some good work in there for meditations and ritual work. I would check that out. Okay. Nicole Fire says, when you go on a date without me driving there and get paying your own bills to take care of babies, then you're dead. Yeah. I mean, you got to be practical in your approach in life, right? I think we're at the end here. Then JW said, do you find utility in the later incarnations that said, i.e. the evil brother of Osiris? No, I don't look at it like that. I always look at how we approach the concept. For an example, we look at Set, which represents, and there's a concept that Don Webb, for an example, presented in one of his books, and I use that as an example, right? And this is my approach to it. Set represents the red blood cells, right? Chaos, confusion, because he makes order out of it. And Heru or Horus represents the white blood cells, which represents conformity, right? Lower self. So we look at that story, really what that represents is the internal war we fight within ourselves between the higher and the lower self, right? It's not this evil, good or bad story that's become religiousized through more modern day Egyptian teachings. We don't look at it like that, right? As occultists and left-hand path practitioners, we look at Set being as one of the only unique god in ancient Egypt, just because symbolically, when you look at his deific mask or his animal mask that he wears, to this day, nobody can figure out what it is. They have theories. Is it a boar or a pig? Is it a canine? Or what kind of animal? That's the whole purpose of it. You can't figure it out because he doesn't represent conformity, right? Some have confused. He kind of looks like an Ampu or Anubis. There's a reason for all of that. There's heavy esoterical breakdowns of what Set is and what he really represents, right? He represents everything we're striving to become. Now, what was funny a couple years back when they came out with that movie Gods of Egypt, though it was a little bit Hollywood, but it shows you what did Set do. He went around to every one of the key archetypes in Egypt. He took Tahuti's brain, he took Osiris's eye, and what did he say? I devour and eat the gods. I embody and become them. I don't worship them. So what that was actually saying, Set embodied all of that which everybody was striving to become. It just he did not want to conform like you read the stories in Egypt, because the Osirian cult after the 21st and 22nd dynasties was trying to establish this form of monotheistic worship under the triad of Ra. And he did not want to conform to that. You understand? It's no different of what we experience in our life, where we are at an early age, most of us here in the West, where we're forced to follow a religion because our parents followed the religion. We have to do it because they were raised like that. Their parents was raised like that. The cycle doesn't break until we make a conscious decision not to do it no more, which takes you back to the story of Set's birth, right? How was Set birthed into the universe? It says he ripped himself from the womb of his mother Nut. He couldn't even wait for the natural process. What that represents symbolically is he stood as his own individual, isolation. He was individuated. He was different to the very point that he didn't even want to go through the normal birth process, right? So there's more to it, but just to give you a brief little breakdown. All right. Think that is it. I think we've been on long enough.
Yep.
Wrap it up. Just a quick reminder. Want to remind everybody, we do have a class this Saturday. If you're on Patreon, tier 3, you're good to go. African Witchcraft class number 7. That's this Saturday. 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Friday night, the 24th, we have the Baphomet ritual, the Samael and Lilith ritual to become like Baphomet. That's for only Patreon members, tier 3 and above. I encourage you, if you want to participate in that, or even the classes, I encourage you to go to the Patreon page, patreon.com/Baniti, Baniti. Tier 3, that gives you access to all the classes every month. It's a month ritual, and it's much cheaper than paying for the classes individually. So I encourage that. The Journey of the Black Adam Conference, again, quick reminder, we have the venue officially confirmed, same one as last year. It'll be Cultural Expressions in downtown Hollywood, Florida, a very convenient location. It ain't nothing but 10 minutes or so from the airport, Fort Lauderdale Hollywood International Airport. You're close to the beaches, restaurants, hotels, Airbnbs, you name it.
Everything is right there. Yeah.
So
Everything
we
is
encourage, I'm going to start taking registration for that at the end of next month. So we will, I can't believe I'm saying that. I felt like we just did it. So that's booked October 27th to the 30th, year number 5. This will be the 5th straight year we're doing it. It's growing every year. We already have a lot of stuff on tap. We just need to organize it. But again, I'm sure it'll be like it's been the previous 4 years. Hopefully we see some new people.
A memory.
An
An
new folks out
adventure.
there. Yeah, let's get some new people out there.
And come to, I believe you open it up as well for the monthly rituals. It's at the end of the month, every Friday. The Friday at the end of every month. Just contact Baniti.
Yeah. If you want to, also myself, Kevin, Mike, some of the regular ones of us that are here, if you want to, I have opened back up where we used to get people when they were able to. If anybody would like to travel, we do our monthly rituals here as a group on the last Friday of the month. So if anybody would like to attend, just reach out to me. Obviously, we need to talk to you first and just know you're coming and things of that nature. So we've opened that back up. Yes, I want to put that out there. I keep forgetting. So if you are in the area or you want to make a trip down here to participate, feel free. Reach out. That's always the last Friday of the month. We're constantly doing work down here. Trust me when I tell you. Constantly. So segment, you grew up in St. Pete, so you were in Tampa. If you're ever down this way, come through. Come through, meet everybody. And then, after we do the ritual, we go out and hang out for a little bit, get some grub, and we just shoot the shit and, we have fun. you know, so swing through. Anybody wants to come through, reach out. That's something we do every month. Hopefully the conference, we get to see more new faces, new people. Other than that, went over everything, the Patreon page. If you need to reach me, reading, consultation, reach out. Everything's in the description box of the videos. Other than that, time to go. I want to thank everybody that supports the YouTube channel, Primordial Chaos on Facebook, Primordial Chaos 9 on Instagram, and the Patreon page. Much appreciation to you guys that have been supporting the Patreon page for almost the last, I think, 2 years now, 2 years or so.
Yeah.
Greatly appreciate it. All right. Okay. All right. Infernal blessings to all. We'll talk soon, and you guys enjoy the rest of your night. Peace.
Good night.